I tell you once more, I'll be snug as a rug on the living room floor, close as the paper on the bedroom wall, close as I'll be when I hear you call. I'm sticking to you, baby. I'm sticking to you, baby. Like cool or ice, brown or rice, I'll be with you all the time. I'm sticking to you, baby. That's right, I'm sticking to you, baby. I'm sticking to you, baby. Because I love you, baby, yeah. I'll be sticking to you, baby, with you all the time. Yeah, yeah.
Okay, so we're going to open the Architectural Board of Review meeting for Monday, June 18th, and we can start with the roll call.
Okay, here we go. Vice Chair Tripp,
Here.
Board Member Moore,
Here.
Board Member Watkins,
Here.
Board Member Witosh. Howard.
Here.
We have a quorum.
Okay, great. And we'll open public comment. Anyone in the public like to address the board on an item that's not on the agenda? Seeing no one, we'll close public comment and go to approval of the minutes for Architectural Board Review meeting of June 4th. And if anyone has any comments on the minutes?
I do.
Okay, which number? Or which item?
Well, I would like to go to item number 4 and the comments in the motion. I find that the comments are incomprehensible, period. The language that we are using in the minutes is not, it's not capable, people don't know what they're reading.
Okay,
I mean, with some exceptions.
yeah, let's go through one by one.
So a lot of it has to do with wordiness, and a lot of it has to do with just really not understanding, my not understanding. So number 2 says, I would suggest just say, simplify and restudy the detailing, such as the arches on the first floor, period. Eliminate secondary recess and extend wall, full thickness of the wall, back from the face of the building, as provided in the photograph. So it says, in addition, and then it says, should similarly. I would say either one or the other. In addition, the precast sandstone surrounds on plan, sheet A11, should meet the opening recess back at the opening, or the precast sandstone surrounds should similarly meet the opening recess back into the opening.
I think the first way you said it, taking out similarly, I think that makes
Okay.
sense. And other board members
So-
can jump in, but
And I would say, and then it says, and correspondingly, I would just say, and the precast sandstone arches should extend down to meet the sandstone columns. The idea of all this is just to be less wordy and confusing. So it says, restudy all the plaster details are to be carefully studied and dimensioned. I would just say, restudy plaster details
right.
and dimension. Number 5, restudy the plaster detailing at the main entrance tower to be more in keeping with those found in Santa Barbara. I don't know what those refers to.
So maybe just restudy, it's really just restudy the plaster detail at the main entrance tower. We could say
So-
in keeping with the Santa Barbara
In
style.
keeping with Santa Barbara, with the Santa Barbara style. Yeah, I think that's the way to do it.
So should it read, restudy the plaster detailing to be more in keeping with Santa Barbara style?
Well, at the main
At
entrance
the main
tower.
entrance is okay.
You need that part.
So then, number 7 says, provide a water line. I think the expression is a water dam, and actually it isn't a water dam, it's a wainscot. To reduce the apparent building height. That's what wainscots do.
Yeah, I remember someone was
We said
calling it
water
water line.
Yeah, which is,
It's this,
I think I may have said water dam, but that was when there was a little lip. If it was done in stone or some kind of physical material, then a water dam would be okay. But if you're going to paint, then it's probably just a wainscot.
Okay.
I mean, they're both ideas are represented. And then provide drawings and elevations without hard shadow lines. Just say to better show building features.
yep,
And then restudy to vary the chimney pop-out. Just say restudy varying the chimney pop-out details
yep.
to add more visual interest. You don't have to say to the architecture.
Did you get all
I think-
the notes that Howard just gave for number 2? Because that was a longer one.
I looked at the others. This one seemed to have a more concentrated, incomprehensible language than the others.
Did anyone else have any other, or were there any other comments? No. Anyone else? Okay. Can we get a first for the approval of the minutes? As corrected?
I'll do it.
Okay,
first.
Howard, and second?
I'll second.
Seconded by Kevin. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, motion carries. So moving on to consent calendar of June 11th and June 18th.
For the Architectural Board of Review consent agenda for June 11th, item A, 826 De La Vina was given approval of its review after final with comments. Item B, 2843 State Street was given project design and final approval with a minor zoning exception. Item C, 1922 De La Vina was continued indefinitely due to the applicant's absence. And item D, 42 Helena Avenue was given project design and final approval as submitted.
Okay, first,
Second.
seconded by Kevin. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
For the consent agenda for June 18th, Architectural Board of Review. Item A, 2904 De La Vina Street was given project design approval and continued 1 week to consent. Comments? Item B, 3968 Via Lucero was postponed indefinitely due to the applicant's absence. Item C, 988 Miramonte Drive was continued 1 week with comments. Item D, 3514 State Street was given project design and final approval with comments. Item E, 1922 De La Vina Street was postponed indefinitely due to the at the applicant's request.
Okay. Oh, first.
Second.
Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Oh. David, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. So we're moving on to announcements, requests by applicants for continuances, withdrawals, future agenda items, appeals.
So the only announcement we have today is that the chair, Gradine, has formally tendered his resignation and will no longer be a sitting member of the Architectural Board of Review. And we have, City Council will be doing appointments next week on the 26th. And that means on the first meeting in July, which is the 2nd of July, we will be holding elections for the vacancy as the chair, and also reappoint vice chair as needed.
Okay, great. And, yeah, I think that was it. Okay. And then, Bob will be absent.
Oh, right, and chair, board member Gradine will be absent from today's meeting.
Cunningham.
Cunningham, sorry, Cunningham.
Gradine too.
Gradine will also be
Gradine
absent.
also,
Yeah.
but he's no longer a board member.
Is this a quorum here?
This is a
Yep.
quorum, yes. And you should have
There you
received
go.
an email earlier today asking you to review for any conflicts of interest. So hopefully everyone here is able to review all of the projects.
Right, there are no conflicts, right?
Not to my knowledge.
Okay. Any subcommittee reports? Okay. So we can start with item number 1, the 2700 block State Street. It's a concept review, the new item. Proposal for right-of-way improvements at the intersection of State Street and Alomar Avenue. Project includes installation of pedestrian countdown timers, reconstruction of the existing access ramps to meet ADA requirements, increased pervious surface, and enhancing the uncontrolled crossings with standard crosswalk signals and markings. So action may be taken. And if you could just state your name for the record.
I'm Bedad Garagosli, and I'm a traffic engineer with the city's Public Works Department. And I am here to present the State and Alomar Traffic Signal Upgrades Project. So a little bit of background about the project. It's a federally funded safety project. So the scope of work is limited to pedestrian safety improvements. And with that being said, I'd like to go over a few of the main design elements with you guys today.
Yeah, if you can first just orient us where on State Street and then kind of walk through the...
Sure. So the main portion of the project is at the intersection of State Street and Alomar Avenue at the signalized intersection, shown in red here. And then all the other blue locations are just enhancing the typical crosswalk signs, the yellow pedestrian signage. So the main work, aesthetically at least, is at the State and Alomar signal.
Okay. But then there'll be some improvements where it's highlighted.
Yeah, the blue locations will have just standard crosswalk markings and signs.
Okay. And then this is the...
So these pictures here are the State and Alomar signal. I believe there's one picture for each corner of the intersection.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
There's three main portions of the project. The first is we're going to be installing pedestrian countdown timers along the Alomar Avenue crossings. So they currently exist for crossing State Street, but there's none for Alomar Avenue. So just given how large of an intersection this is and the crossing distances, we're looking to provide some useful information to pedestrians so they know how long they have to cross the street and they don't get stuck in the middle of the intersection when the light's turning yellow and red. So that's the first major improvement. The second is to reconstruct the existing pedestrian ramps to be ADA, to meet ADA standards. So part of that design will be to introduce raised parkway. Right now it's curb-face sidewalk. And the design includes the raised parkway to really delineate the path of travel to the new access ramps. So we're proposing in the parkway to install permeable pavers. And the design currently calls for buff colored, which matches the pavers recently installed just further north at the State Street and Calle Palo Colorado intersection, and then also at the De La Vina Arden and De La Vina Calle Lorales intersections. An alternative would be the red colored brick, which is actually found just south of here at the at State Street and Quinto, Junipero, and Los Olivos. So I'm looking for some guidance from you guys for the color of permeable pavers.
Do you have images of both?
Yes.
Of what's been installed in both locations?
Yeah, so this is the two different style colors.
Thank you.
Yeah, sure. So on the left, you'll have at the intersection of State and Calle Palo Colorado, the buff-colored brick, and then on the right, I believe that's at Quinto, State Street and Quinto, just south. So this intersection is right in between the two. It's kind of like the transition area, I suppose, between the different color styles. So like just 1,500 feet to the north, you have the buff, and 1,500 feet to the south, you have the red. So
What's the one to the north?
State Street in Calle Palo Colorado, the buff.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Near that
Recently completed.
gas station,
Yeah, for
and then the park's on the other side.
yeah, for the pedestrian crossing right there.
So can you just walk us through like where
Yeah,
the layouts and what's changing?
Yeah, so on the northwest corner over here, we are proposing to install a new streetlight here. I guess I should talk about streetlights too. So the third part of the project would be, I think it's under here.
Yeah, there it is.
Okay, so the third part of the project is intersection lighting. So currently there's 3 streetlights at the intersection, and just given how large the intersection is, it doesn't really illuminate especially the crosswalks. So you have these kind of pockets of darkness where pedestrians can kind of get lost at nighttime. So we're looking to install 3 new city standard type B lights. So 20-foot tall lights with slimline fixtures. So one on the northwest corner, northeast corner, southwest corner, and then relocating the existing 30-foot light that's on the northeast side to the southwest corner over there. That'll really help just illuminate all the approaches and make pedestrians more visible at nighttime. So in terms of the parkway, so each corner will have these little parkway islands that'll be raised above the sidewalk to guide the pedestrians to their appropriate ramps. And then there's about 500 square feet of increase in pervious surface with this project at the site as well. And then over here is the typical standard city design for crosswalks, and that's in compliance with federal and state standards.
Okay.
And then on this page is a detailed image or a detailed drawing for each corner, just to make it a little bit more clear.
And these are the lights.
Yeah, so these are the type A and type B lights. Type B being the 20-foot tall and type A being the 30-foot tall lights. And then on this side is the slimline fixtures that are consistent with the lights that are currently out there, as well as the lights in the,
Is that like this one?
yeah, exactly, just like that. So I think that's the 30-foot tall type A. And then the Bs would just be a shorter version, which just kind of more focused in on the crosswalks themselves.
Okay.
And then this is a detail of the permeable paver cross-section.
Okay. Does that kind of conclude your presentation?
Yes.
Okay, so we'll open public comment. Seeing no one, we'll go to questions from the board. Howard, do you want to start?
Sure. How tall are the light standards now? Traffic light standards?
They're 10 feet tall. So actually, thank you for bringing that up. Something I wanted to mention as well is there will be a net change in 0 poles. So we'd be replacing the existing 10-foot traffic signal lights with 20-foot Type B street lights.
So then both are on the same pole?
Yeah, we can implement both on.
So this reduces the number of poles?
It would be a net change of 0.
Oh, I
So
see.
we would replace, for every light we're adding, we're essentially removing a traffic signal pole.
So what happens, I'm looking on sheet number 3 of 4. Let's just take the northwest detail. I see that the brick, whichever it is nicely placed in some kind of a curb, within a curb, and the ramp goes down between the curbs. So that's true where it says ramp number 2, heading down across State Street. What happens on the uphill side of the second ramp on Alomar side?
So this area.
Yes,
right here.
why is there no curb there?
So on this side, we have the existing traffic signal pole and our pole boxes for our traffic signal infrastructure. So we just can't get Parkway put in there. And we'll also have our traffic signal cabinet on this side. So it's kind of a tight corner to squeeze in more Parkway.
So
This
you
is-
should, okay.
Is this that corner, right?
I believe so. It's kind of hard for me to see.
That's
upside
where
down.
Grombal's
Because
is.
it's,
Yeah, that's the corner.
Yeah.
so this is,
So
Do you
there
wanna
would be,
just point
yeah,
to
sure.
this?
So there would be a new street light right here in front of that Edison pole.
and there's an Edison pole right there.
Yeah. Yeah, that's another very good point. Thank you.
So, for example, on the other side, you have a number 10, which is a pull box, Caltrans pull box. And you have a number of these also on the opposite side, but you pave the one where the Caltrans is, and you don't pave the other side. I'm just wondering why, what determines whether you pave or don't pave?
Yeah, so these ones are new pole boxes. What's, I guess, not shown under here is an existing pole box. I think the hatching is above the pole box there. So one thing that we want to do while we're building this signal is to keep it operational during construction. And because there's a pole right there, we can't even replace that pole in its existing location. We have to put in a new pole behind it. We can look into trying to fit in additional Parkway over there. It's kind of tight with the signal infrastructure on that corner. It's also kind of dead ends over to, not dead ends, but there's no sidewalk along this side. And we're really using these pervious parkways to help meet our ADA compliance. And on this side, we don't have sidewalk, so it's not as necessary.
So there is a concrete transition up there, is that?
Yeah, which doesn't need to meet ADA accessibility because it's not a walking path.
So then on the southwest, I see again one of these little islands, and where it says number 7 in the middle, and you have rounded corners on one end and then square corners on the other. What determines when a corner is square-ended and when it is rounded?
Yeah, that's a really good question. So on the intersection side of the street, we want to have these rounded edges so that they're not traffic hazards where it could pop your tire if you hit it. And then the rounded corners really kind of help open up the path a little bit, just so pedestrians aren't so squeezed in. On this side, it being square, we're just trying to wrap it around that proposed pole box. And we don't have that same kind of, like this isn't a walking path here. There's an existing pole there. We could taper that around and make it round to match this side over here, though.
Okay, those are my questions. Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay. Kevin?
The plan drawing shows a pattern on your brick. Is that intentional, or is there a reason for it, or is it going to be one of these?
It would match the, I guess, the herringbone style.
Okay, whether it's brick or
Yeah.
the buff.
Yeah.
Okay. That's my question.
David, any questions?
Yeah, when we see these projects, these improvements, typically the parkways, they are proposed as paving infill versus planting. From what I remember, it might have to do something with funding, possibly. Is there a reason why there isn't a proposal for any planting to be added?
Yeah, so there's kind of two parts for that, for this project. One is, like you said, the maintenance part, and because it's right next to an intersection, maintaining it would be difficult and potentially even a safety problem for those that need to maintain it, given how much traffic goes through here. Yeah, actually, I think that's it, yeah. So from a maintenance standpoint and and then also from a signal visibility standpoint, so if we put in any trees in the area, it has the potential to block the traffic signals that we need to be able to see. I think it's like 250 feet, 300 feet back. So we have existing trees that are out there right now that are kind of obstructing the signal, so we want to stay away from putting in any potential obstructions.
Even like low ground cover, though, or anything like that? Some things that are drought resistant? Not necessarily even hedges or trees, but
yeah,
would that even be an option?
It would be an option. We'd have to just weigh it against the safety benefits of not having to put people at the intersection to maintain it regularly.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's my only question. Thank you.
Go to comments. Howard, and then if everyone can weigh in on this brick color
Yeah.
and what their preference is.
So you're saying you have the buff upstream and you have the brick downstream.
Mm-hmm. That's right.
So I'm familiar with this corner because it's in my neighborhood, and I know that there is some contemporary building, the Lemon Tree. There's also a medical office building in the corner, which is old-time contemporary Santa Barbara classic. So I think either one could work, just impartially. I mean, you get a vote here, maybe you get a consensus. But one comment that I do have is that it would really, I think it's possible to tweak the exact location of a power pole or of a street light, move it within a couple of inches. It would be really great if you could somehow get these ramps to go down from the sidewalk to the street between curbs, and rather than having them be sometimes curb and sometimes not. People will drift over if it's all one kind of warped surface, and it would be nice to define your path so that, for example, in these two examples that we talked about, the northwest and the southwest, and I believe that even actually all corners have the same issue, where you could possibly radius or maybe somehow turn and get an edge, get a curb with an edge to it, and somehow just put the material, whichever material you choose, so that people don't get confused about which is the place you stand on a sidewalk or a surface, and where is the place that you go down into the street. I think that probably applies to all four of these intersections. If I would ask that you would study that.
So where
Well, for
exactly?
example,
Because
okay.
there's some instances
Yeah.
where it's not But you mentioned this one.
Yeah. For example, this is the line of the ramp, and here's your curb. So at some point, this curb is breaking down, and then it's at street grade here. Then it pops up, and there's a surface to walk on. Is that right?
Yes.
So what I would ask is it go to this line here, and somehow, make this paved.
Yeah, a raised surface to
Yeah,
match
so
that.
stand, ramp. Same thing here. Stand. Over here, this is real confusing. It's kind of a wild angle anyway. But if you could somehow get this to like that.
Yeah.
And then over here, you have one on this side. And this is same thing. And you might have to move this 3 inches over to miss. And the same thing here. This is wild.
Yeah, this is a really tough corner to
Yeah,
design.
I don't know. I think you've done what you can here. This is the only place I would try to come back maybe and put something in there
Okay.
like that, so that you have a ramp, and then this is okay. But I would ask that you would study those locations for potential. Sorry. For curbing and surfacing.
Okay.
That's it. Thank you.
Otherwise, you're,
I'm good with what's,
Kevin?
I mean, I see Howard's point, and it would be nice. I don't know that that's necessary. I think it's fine as proposed, the layout. On the color, I don't know, in my mind, the brick always seems a little more special than the buff paver. And it's a busy intersection and somewhat important in Santa Barbara. I think I would prefer to see the brick, even though these are going to be bright yellow.
Those would be the same terracotta and red.
Not going to be. They're going to be bright yellow.
Well, yeah, I guess for to match with ADA
Yeah.
accessibility, they typically are yellow. I know that we install them with that red color, but if you guys are okay with the yellow, I think
It's
Well,
not
it's
up to
more a
us.
matter of what is going to be put in.
It's not up to us.
Yeah.
It's up to the code. So I prefer the brick color, I guess.
Okay,
Madam Chair,
yep.
did Board Member Witosh weigh in on the color of the brick?
It could go either way.
Okay.
We'll do.
I'm on the fence.
We'll come back to it to get a direction. All right, David?
I would agree with the brick color. I think it seems nicer. I know it's kind of like you can split it either way, depending on whether you go up or down, but I think that corridor leading down towards Quinto, that consistency is probably a little bit more, the proximity is a little bit more accessible, I think, than the other direction. I would challenge you guys to maybe look and see if there's ways to introduce some planting. I think, I know funding is an aspect of it, so if that's a make or break, then I can't go against that and say you have to do something that's going to preclude you from funding. But there's a lot of these projects that are being proposed right now, not just from you, from other people in your department, and I think given that the city as a whole is kind of gearing towards this newer approach of stormwater management and permeability and things like that, I think it would be nice to kind of show that in our public works projects where feasible. I don't think it needs to be at every corner, but if there's opportunities to maybe get some planning in, because I walk this corner a lot too, and it's a very busy and kind of just built corner. There's not a lot of softness to it. There's just a lot of paving, and the streets are very wide. So I think adding a little bit of even just low ground cover that's very easy to maintain, that doesn't require a lot of maintenance, even if it's drought resistant, drought tolerant, things like that. That'd be my personal take. It'd be nice to see some of that implemented in this if that's possible. It may not be because of the utilities, but if there's an opportunity, I would welcome that.
okay.
Otherwise, I think the project is fine as proposed.
I just want to clarify that these are pervious, so they
Yeah.
would provide a little bit, not probably as much as.
Yeah, I think
but
I think seeing some greenery would be nice.
I do have another project at Alomar and Puesto del Sol, and we're doing landscaping there
Yes.
as opposed to parkway. So,
Cool.
yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, sure.
I guess to just take a straw vote on the color, it seems like who would be in favor of the brick color? Okay. So there's that direction.
So I would ask like a straw vote on another matter, and that is along the lines of what David was saying and also what I was saying about either, this is a very, not industrial, but it's a very hard surfaced intersection. And by increasing the area
Well,
that you
wait,
pave.
I was going to make my last
I'm
comment,
sorry. I thought you were.
and then that was going to be my next thing, was leading to what you're talking about.
Great, go ahead.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
But my comment was just going to be that a few of these areas that Howard kind of highlighted, if it's possible to basically make this a little bit more consistent, I think that would be, it would be a benefit to the intersection in the project. And maybe if it only happens in like one location, and if it's not possible, at these corners where you have the poles, that would be okay. But I kind of see where he was going, kind of completing the design. But on the subject of landscaping versus permeable, I guess how many board members would want them to explore putting in actual landscaping?
I don't think it needs to be everywhere, but I would think there's some opportunities.
Okay.
I'm okay with landscaping.
So were you voting yes or?
But I'm
that-
voting yes for either landscaping or paving those areas, because it's really very, very hard to.
Okay. So wait. So as far as that straw vote though, are you raising your hand?
But what's the straw vote?
Straw vote is, do we want them to investigate putting in some landscaping in these in the paved locations that they're showing?
Investigate, yes.
Okay, so it was a 2-2 vote.
Can I add something?
Sure.
But I'm also more in favor of them putting brick paving to define those ramps
Right.
more than landscaping, because landscaping is again, you can't stand on it.
Sure.
And the paving is a more pleasant material to look at than warped concrete
Okay.
surface.
So I will take a stab at. So I guess it would be PDA with the following comments that the board would suggest using the brick color for the permeable pavers, and to look into expanding some of the permeable areas as noted on sheet 3, to see if it's possible to extend it in, I guess, each of the corners in the areas that are marked. But that it could, yeah, so that would be the motion.
What's PDA?
Project design approval.
Oh, okay.
Basically, having you see if you can add these and it would come back for final.
Okay.
So I'll second that.
Madam Chair, can we clarify, is this to the full board or to consent?
I guess it could be to consent. That would be the motion. And
I
so-
also,
Still
if I could clarify one more thing too.
What,
One of the reasons why we initially didn't extend the raised parkway up to each ramp is the ramps are about 6 feet wide right now, proposed, and having that extra space would help someone who doesn't need the accessibility of the ramp to be able to start transitioning over to the direction that they're trying to travel. So when we tighten up these corners too much, you're kind of funneling, you are funneling pedestrians into a tighter space.
okay,
So like, for instance, on this northwest corner, it is pretty narrow here because of the parkway. but on the southwest corner, we just use the standard.
Right, but it's more to have you look at these areas. Maybe it doesn't go the full way. Maybe it's a port comes
as
up
much as
a portion, so it's not just like cut off.
Got
But
it.
anyways, that would be my take at a motion. So if it would someone want to
I'll
second
second
that?
that.
Howard seconded. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Oh, so motion carried. That was to consent. Yeah. So just so that it would be to consent. You can see how far you could push it if you can just, adjust a few areas, and then you just come back to consent for final.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks.
Nicely drawn and presented.
All right, item number 2, 2700 block De La Vina Street, concept review, continued item, proposal
Don't you walk away with that.
Proposal for the replacement of the De La Vina Bridge Street over Mission Creek. The project is comprised of the demolition of the existing bridge, including the bridge foundation, as well as the existing commercial buildings situated on the bridge, and the construction of a new bridge. Reconstruction of storm drains, city water and sewer utilities, restoration of portion of Mission Creek, and roadway and/or pedestrian lighting crossing improvements. The second concept review, and this is comments only, project requires further environmental assessment and was last reviewed on March 27, 2017. So
I have
if
the
you
comments here.
If you can turn that on and state your names for the record.
Tom Conti, Bengal Engineering.
Laura Inez, City of Santa Barbara.
Sorry.
Natira Jones, Landscape Architect.
Yeah, Kevin, if you want to read some of our notes from the last time.
Sure, so the motion, you're continued indefinitely with comments. The board is in support of the project. The board looks forward to seeing additional details as the project progresses. The board would like to see how the project addresses neighbors' concerns and encourages the implementation of more neighborhood outreach. And then 4, study how to address pedestrian paths and provide landscaping detail and implement the preservation of trees, preserve the historic guardrail. It was a 4-0 vote.
Great.
Okay, I guess I'm going to start off here. We'll address those comments as we go along. So our first meeting was, in fact, in March at ABR, March of 2017. Since that time, we've had a couple public outreach meetings where we've met with the neighborhood, talked about the project, and we've also had a few stakeholder design team meetings with kind of the greater city divisions, talking about what common goals are, kind of fleshing out all the constraints and comments for the site. So we've done quite a bit of outreach for the project. I did want to go a little bit into the project introduction, which you call Concept 1, where we met last year, because I'm not sure if there was any board member replacement, so I wanted to touch briefly about a little bit about that meeting.
Yeah, I think you just weren't here, but I think everyone was here, so.
Okay, it really short. So the neighborhood of the project is between Alomar and Vernon on De La Vina. So people are familiar with Trader Joe's, which is up here. Also a bunch of restaurants around here. What we used to be Little Ralph's, that's now another grocery store. So the original bridge was about 32 feet wide, built in 1916. And at that time it was Hollister Avenue. In 1926, they came along and widened significantly on the downstream side for the creation of kind of this buildings that are actually sitting on top of the bridge today. So at this time, The bridge actually spans about 110 feet from the back of the pizza parlor to the upstream bridge rail that was discussed in preserving the original bridge rail from 1916 in the first meeting in March. It spans about 30 feet clear for conveyance in the creek, which is pretty narrow for hydraulics conveyance of today. So it currently has, as I mentioned, there's a couple businesses here that are actually on the same foundation as the bridge. Let's see, I guess we can flip ahead here. Some of the other items that we've kind of determined or figured out since the project introduction is the complexity of all the utilities in the area. This is pretty much every utility that's known to modern man here. Underground electric, distribution, transmission, fiber optic, coax cable, sewer siphon, abandoned water line, and a medium pressure, pretty big gas line. So all of these are kind of really complex constraints that we have to deal with for phasing the project. We could flip through this one. This is kind of a replication. So some of the elements that we're looking at improving on, and it's kind of nice to flip back to the original sheet, but on De La Vina right now, you can see if you're standing on this curb, the curbs really don't line up, and there's a slight shift in the road, a little what we call belly here for turnoff here into the parking lot. So one of the goals for this, for the alternative was to, that you're looking at right here, is to correct and straighten out the path through for the vehicles. What we also did was create a straighter path for the pedestrians, so the pedestrians don't have to have a straighter path through the ADA ramps, so it's not offset, so it's kind of clear for pedestrians how they go through, and all of the accessible ramps line up, so it's a straight through path. Some of the other improvements that were discussed in the neighborhood meetings is some of the drainage issues here during high storm events on the street and in basically in the channel. So what we've done is, instead of having a 30-foot span, we have a 57-foot clear span bridge, aligned it more with a creek instead of having this jog within the existing bridge here, so that the conveyance underneath can go through, and eventually this will hopefully spawn more improvements upstream and downstream to convey a lot bigger flows through for the higher storm events. Another feature for this alternate is that we realign Vernon Road so that so it's not as much as skew, so that the vehicles will actually come up and be more square to the intersection, so we're increasing sight distance here. In the current configuration, it's a challenge for a car to sit here and have a real long shot view of seeing an oncoming car. So what we're doing here is we're putting in a little angle in, a radius to the tangent, where cars can square up and actually have a good sight distance for both towards the mountain and towards the ocean. Let's see here. So you'll see on this alternate too, we're addressing the kind of the needs of all modes of transportation. It's fairly consistent with what's out there today. So we have 2 bike lanes going both north and south per se, and then also 2 vehicle lanes going north and south with a center turning lane for both the mountainside and the ocean side. And also, I guess I talked a little bit about the pedestrian pathing here. We can flip over this. And this kind of just shows the lane configuration. This is a little repetitious. We can flip through this because I think that others have talked about that. So now that we developed kind of the geometric roadway design, we looked at the creek and street palette of landscape plants and elements that we're putting in the project. The process that we went through was we created a palette of plants for the Creeks Division to look at and approve. So all of the species of plants within the creek have been approved by Creeks, which we've placed, which Natira could get into about how she placed all the plants and so forth. And also selected designated street trees from the city arborists that we've placed on the street, and locations that are give shade but still allow pedestrians to be seen by cars. And Natira, if you want to talk a little bit about placement of trees or plants.
So this project gives us the opportunity to plant 3 new street trees along Delavina, these trees here, and 2 new street trees, if you flip the page, on Vernon Street, here and here, and also allows us to add some parkway plantings to increase aesthetics along Delavina Street and also on Vernon Street. In the creek areas, downstream, it gives us the opportunity to plant 12 new large oak trees and sycamore trees, and then 9+ trees on the upstream side. And also the planting will be, we've divided planting into different categories: upstream, what we call transition plant, and then transition and the wetland plants. So all these plants will be, it's a nice opportunity to increase species diversity along the creek and also increase creek shading. And these plants accommodate, the creek type conditions, fluctuating water levels, and occasionally standing water in the creek.
So one thing I'll mention on the landscape plans that I think you can see that's more prevalent than the roadway plans is it's kind of hard to read, but what you see here is 2 different future grade topos here. One for the roadway that we've reprofiled, and 2 for the actual creekway. So what we're planning on doing is, the bridge is going to span a certain distance, but we're going to have side sloped embankments underneath the bridge and also upstream and downstream of the bridge to keep the conveyance of the creek in the similar condition that it is today, so that we're not conveying more at this time, but as the future improvements come upstream and downstream, they can get opened up. Mm-hmm. So that's one part of this sheet that is nice to show. So,
one of the last things was talking about the guardrails. And
yes,
that's one other note was also just talking about which trees were getting replaced or removed and how many were replacing them.
Yes, and that's what we're looking at right here is a tree removal plan. Unfortunately, there's a lot of riparian trees within the creek bed that are very close proximity to the existing bridge. I think there's something like 9 or 10 riparian trees that are being removed, so we're going to likely be placing somewhere upwards to 27 to 30 trees, maybe not on this site, but the regulatory agencies will require that. So what Natira said is I think you placed about 19 or so within the project limits right now. So we're taking out some sycamores and oaks within the upstream area that are directly in the creek, but we're replacing with quite a few more.
Correct. So you can see, there's a nice opportunity to increase.
Turn your mic.
Yeah. I believe there's over 12 large new trees that can be planted on the downstream side. That's not counting some of the smaller trees. That'll be understory trees. And then 9 large sycamore oaks on the upstream side, not counting some of the smaller understory type trees too. That'll add.
Okay.
So, some other trees that are going to be removed predominantly for construction access. There's a building right here. In order to phase this project, we're going to be building one side at a time likely. So the contractor is going to be probably needing some room around here to stage for the foundation installation and the superstructure construction. So we're looking to take these pines out that have yet been affected by beetles, but I'm sure there might be coming, and replace it with actual street trees that are designated for this area. So I think I actually have some photo paper, the renderings here.
Prettier paper.
Yeah, some prettier paper to give a feel of what it's going to look like on the creek level. So we have two renderings here. One is showing the creek level view, looking upstream here, showing the bridge rail here. We're not looking to, unfortunately, with the bridge rail that's out there, it's not up to testing. We can't really replicate the exact look in order to accommodate the state from approving a bridge rail. All the bridge rails have to be MASH tested, so there's a certain few that Caltrans has accepted. We can look outside to other DOTs that have MASH tested railings to see if there's something similar, but at this time we have not found anything. So we're proposing to replace the bridge rail instead of this configuration. It's more of a modern configuration where it's a concrete railing with rectangular fenestration windows here in the bridge rail itself. It's a really elegant rail with a straight kind of top cap here without any obtrusions, which I think is really nice. This rendering, I guess, also shows the side slope embankment on what we're proposing to do that's consistent with Natira's plan. So we could flip to the next rendering here. Excuse me. So this is a street level view looking also upstream. And what you could see is, I guess, we're kind of, the vantage point is standing by the auto camp, if anyone's familiar with the Airstream trailer park here. Looking across to Presto Pasta here. Here's the street tree designated species that we're proposing to place here. And it shows kind of the two crossings that we're making good improvements on, pedestrian improvements with the flashing beacons and also the street light fixture that's consistent with the neighborhood. Mm-hmm. I guess the only other item that I would discuss, want to discuss, is the fencing selection. If you flip to the plan sheet, you'll see that there's, well, I guess it's symbolized, but there's a lot of chain link out there. So we're proposing, since it's kind of a commercial corridor, to match what's out there today. But if the board feels like there's something better for the public right away, we'd be up for suggestions, but we're just kind of staying consistent with what's out there right now.
Okay, great. Does that conclude your presentation?
Yes.
Okay, so we'll open it to public comment. Would anyone in the public like to address this project? Seeing no one, close public comment, go to questions from the board. David, do you want to start?
Yes. I guess that image, with the more modern guardrail, are there, from the same, I guess, DOT tested, the MASH testing, are there more decorative options available, or are you pretty limited in your availability?
In the state of California, the only MASH tested approved railings are really the flat. There's type 25 and type 26 railings, and there's actually no fenestration in them. This is a mimic of a Texas DOT rail that we found that is smattered throughout the city. Ortega Street, it was approved for Quiniento Street Bridge.
So there are other examples in town where that's already been done?
Yes.
Okay, cool. And if we can go to the landscape plans, there was something maybe on sheet L1, please. Yes. Those three trees, as you're going, I guess, south. Yeah, thank you. That one exactly where board member Tripp has it. What's the height of that canopy going to be when it's installed?
Well, depending on the size of the tree, whether it be a 24-inch box, height of the canopy could be anywhere from 6 feet. They're 6 feet.
Okay.
You can just leave these on.
Yes, and what I'm wondering is if it's been examined, if that's only about 6 feet, like if I'm there, I'm about a little over 6 feet. If people going south, if that tree's going to provide a potential view blockage because it looks like there's a little access point where you start to
Yeah, and
cross the
that's
street right there.
60, right?
Sorry?
Is it 60 feet?
Oh, he was asking height during installation, right?
Yeah, from, I guess, from bottom of
And
canopy.
that's something that can be tweaked, in the field. We can get pick trees that have a higher canopy.
Okay. There's no limitations if, depending on, bigger tree probably means a
Yeah,
bigger.
It just depends on all trees. They'll grow a little differently. So you can go in the field. We can hand pick the trees that would go there.
And would there be any problem with those larger trees fitting in the parkway?
I think the trees that we selected were actually bigger species that will be bigger eventually because we had enough room. So I think the ones we picked were the,
Yeah, and they're fast growers, so they're going to grow, pretty quickly.
Yeah, just more kind of wondering about the immediate, the first couple of weeks or months of the install
Right.
with the drought and whatnot.
Yeah, and these were recommended by Tim Downey as an approved street tree selection. So
Yeah, and it's kind of that balance of having a tree that's, the bigger the tree, the harder to maintain and
Totally.
grow. So, if
That's what I'm
15
getting
to
at is-
24 box would probably be acceptable to maintain here.
That would work for you guys. And
yeah, a lot of time the trees, their canopy size isn't that wide at first. Maybe 3 feet, so it might not even extend outside the parkway.
I'm more worried, I guess, vertical clearance.
Right.
If you're standing there, is that going to, especially at night
Yeah,
or something,
no,
is that
it
canopy
won't-
going to block the view?
I don't see it affecting the
Okay.
view.
Okay.
And we can coordinate with our traffic engineer to ensure the distance from the ramp to ensure that a vehicle approaching the intersection can
Yeah.
see.
Because
Yeah.
I know that street, and at night it's a pain in the butt. It's dangerous, and so it's nice that this is being proposed. But there's little things like that I think are
Yeah.
just maybe need to be looked at.
Yeah, Derek was weighed heavily on the placement of the trees, and the reason why there's none in front is when the pedestrians cross here and the oncoming traffic is coming, they're not hiding behind the
Yeah.
trees, so they're visible.
Yeah, they can see.
And it's the same with the other side. So.
Cool. And then on the next sheet, on L2, on Vernon, as you start to approach Delavina Street, there's a couple of trees there. I think those ironbarks, those two on the
These
left
two?
hand. Yeah. Those plantings that are underneath there, those will do fine underneath trees like that. They'll get access, no problem.
Yes.
Okay. I think that's. And the last question is the local business outreach. How did you guys approach that for the project?
So as we mentioned in our presentation, we had a few public meetings as well as stakeholder working group meetings. So at those venues, we do over 300 mailings, give the public an opportunity to come out and provide input and concerns and comments. We've had a few of the business owners attend, and so kind of providing feedback as to what it's going to look like, show them the renderings. There will be more extensive outreach to the property owners as we approach our right-of-way phase. So we first have to kind of get through environmental, ensure the project is possible and moving forward, and then we'll approach each property owner and kind of how they're directly affected, whether it be a temporary, right of entry or more permanent takes.
And so far, what have been the biggest concerns that, if any, that business owners in that area have had?
Well, some definitely flooding. Others, their business and how they'll be affected during construction. So the property owners that are abutting the creek, the ones that are staying are aware that we'll do everything we can to ensure, they have access and all that through construction. And then others more directly affected know that we won't be rebuilding the bridge to hold their buildings per se, but there is federal law that requires that we relocate them and provide just compensation. So those discussions will be had in more detail as we get through environmental.
Okay. No further question. Thank you.
Kevin?
Okay, well, maybe that clears up something for me, because I'm just trying to wrap my brain around this versus that. And obviously there's buildings here now, and those will be going away. That's
Yes. So as this curb wraps around, there's going to be a side slope embankment that goes down all the way to the creek. So there's going to be street level, and then there's going to be...
I gotcha. So this building, all the way to this point, and then the parking lot will stay?
Yeah, there's a
Plan
bifurcation.
that shows that, other than this landscape plan,
The rendering kind of shows how you.
but like an actual site plan that shows what. Sorry, I just.
A site demo plan or?
Site section.
There's really no site demo plan. I mean, we're kind of showing, we still want to show what's being impacted. So we haven't really necessarily removed it. I mean, there's a clear separation that we want to have between the public and private properties. So unfortunately, it's founded on the same.
Okay. And then, let's see. I recall one of our many bridge replacement reviews, there was an option at one point for an arched top opening. Was that not the case anymore?
Well, this area is kind of hydraulically challenged, so we want.
I'm just talking about the piercings in the guardrail itself.
Changing
You've got,
not changing the actual.
yeah.
The top having an arch or a diamond, yes.
Yeah, there were some other
we can
details
have-
available.
We can have either. I think the Texas DOT has different options for it, so we could either have pointed, arched,
Yeah.
or
Is
rectangular.
is there an option to color the
Talking about
concrete
this.
at all?
Yeah, I think we can color it if we wanted to. I
Okay.
mean, it's,
And can things be added, detail can be added to this? It can't be essentially constructed that way, but you could potentially clad it with something?
you get into little complications there. Really, the state DOT likes a flat rail, so there's no, when a car hits it, it doesn't get those
Hung up on it or something?
hung up on it. So this has been mash tested, it's approved, and it has those fenestration type of details where there's relief in it.
Are you able to add anything vertically on top?
We'd have to
Extra
look
cap?
for a specimen that is similar to that. I know that in the past, for example, Coda Street Bridge has that similar type that we did, and that was kind of before, but now they're getting a little more stringent on having modifications to their approved rail.
Okay. And then have you thought about any enhanced paving at the bridge or pavers or at the bulb out areas?
I think in a lot of the areas we're looking at,
Maybe the landscape. No.
The landscape areas.
in some of the areas, of course, we're going to have landscaping that doesn't show it. But I think in these kind of radiuses here, we may have some type of brick that we maybe bring back to you. Maybe a natural brick, kind of like was just shown to you at Alomar and State.
And then we touched briefly on the chain link fence. Can you just show us quickly where that is going to be?
So there's going to be chain link. Actually, the rendering didn't show it on top of this wall, but there is going to be. It's greater than 30
Right
inches.
on
so,
top of the
Yeah,
wall.
there's going to be some type of protection here. There's going to be protection on top of the walls for fall protection, and then on this area here. Existing right now, there's chain link that comes down here,
Okay.
and then also on the upstream side here, and then here also.
Okay. And then that just made me think of, there's no sidewalk on this side currently?
Correct.
Is there a plan doesn't look like your plan includes any sort of
No.
possibility of extending that?
Creeks would like us to not put sidewalk there, to have a setback more for the creek. So we are maintaining both crossings, though, but there's not going to be any sidewalk on that side as it sits today.
It's currently a creek restoration area beyond
Yeah,
there.
there's no sidewalk beyond that point.
Okay. Thanks.
Howard, do you have any questions?
So,
What sheet are
same
you on?
page,
Oh.
so these are rock revetment walls, existing.
Yes, currently, yes.
Are they staying there?
No.
I see. So rock revetment walls go away. What is the land profile from the edge of your new realigned Vernon to the place where the rock revetment walls were? Is that level or is that tapering, is that sloping down to the creek bed now?
So inside the creek, there is going to be sloped embankments.
Yes.
So upstream, there is currently a sloped embankment. We're going to have that same thing
Okay.
here. Downstream, there's also going to be some. So it's going to have kind of a line here where we're going to conform back into existing grade. So if you're standing here, this will be generally flat area. It'll be street level. But as the wall is here, of course, then it will, it'll be a couple feet below that where the top of embankment slopes down to the creek.
So in your reaching out and this would probably not be something that you as the engineer would propose, but just as a member of the board, this flat area is like a very nice riparian park opportunity, which would fly right into the face of the creek restoration spirit of the creek restoration movement. Has anyone ever talked about possible little riparian park there? It's a very charming area, and there's nothing like that in this busy hub of traffic and buildings.
Well, I think we've definitely done a lot of planting on that side. As you see on your
Yes.
here, we're trying to salvage and maintain this big 24-inch oak here. But there's going to be a lot of plantings in here, whether it's a kind of a forest where pedestrians can walk through. I don't know if that's really
Not in your purview.
encouraged.
Yeah.
I mean, people can, but then you get habitation.
So the trees that are on the flat I see are this type, which is, this looks like the
Those are the sycamores and
sycamores
oaks. Yeah.
and the, what's this here, the big one, circles?
One is the oak, I believe. And then the one with the lines kind of going out are the sycamores.
So that's,
so-
what are these two, sycamores and
And oaks,
oaks?
Yeah,
And
the
then
coast live oak.
These are more the smaller ones,
correct.
Willows
And a few sycamores that can,
willows and
willows, and there's the,
sycamores.
There's a couple.
yeah, there's 4 or 5 kind of understory trees. Yeah. and
Chain
that-
link fence stays there?
Well, and that's just only to prevent people from going into the,
Yeah, anything over 30 inches, we're kind of required to put a fence
yeah.
there.
Yeah, you kind of
Oh,
can
so
see it here.
it drops more than 30 inches.
So there will be an area. The fence kind of doesn't extend all the way to the curb face. It looks like you have it coming in through here.
Yeah, and that was the idea of just an upland kind of native Restaurant Creek planting, add trees, because it's really nice just downstream of that. It's just a really pretty drive, whole drives along the creek frontage there.
Any lighting proposed in that grove of trees?
No.
Those are my questions.
Okay.
Thank you.
My only questions are, so these trees are being removed because they're in the way of the bridge construction, correct?
Debris flow.
Yeah, they're right in.
Debris flow,
Yeah, they're right
Okay.
inside the creek bank.
Okay. These don't necessarily need to be removed. They're being removed because you want to have staging there for construction?
Well, this one is really close to where we're going to be doing deep excavation. This is actually a small 2-foot retaining wall here. So we're going to be doing a lot of work in here. These trees are probably going to get a lot of machinery on top of them. So these two here could possibly be saved. Whether they're the appropriate tree to be there is,
Yeah, they just seem like pretty big trees.
they are.
They're like, right? Do you have photos of those trees?
Did you say something about a pine beetle? Those
Yeah,
are
but
pines,
it was,
right?
that's like,
They are pine
that's
trees.
supposing that they will get damaged. They're not damaged right now.
We've been on projects before where that we went through
But
the
right
same
now,
routine.
they're good, so like,
Yes.
look,
But as the
focusing on-
project gets implemented, they,
Because you can see them,
yeah, so it's,
they're here, right?
Yeah,
I mean, those
beautiful
are
trees.
pretty big, so, okay, that was my main one question. And then the second question is about the railing. So your plans show chain link, but actually we're seeing some wrought
That's
iron
another.
in this.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
anyways, just looking at this, it's a possibility to not do chain link everywhere.
It is. If the board would prefer to have a wrought iron fence on it, on the street level, we definitely can look for that. You know, it's just it's a cost when we're looking
Yeah,
at
but
the
if
federal
there's like
grant funds.
certain areas that are on the, like, you know, along the public walkway, it could be possible.
So within kind of, you know, caging the public right away, you would prefer more wrought iron, but
This is
along
just,
the along
yeah,
the
this is
creek.
just a question. We haven't, we'll get into where everyone else
I understand.
stands. Okay, those are all my questions, so
Oh,
we'll
question
go
now.
to,
Who owns this land?
where are you talking about?
Not in the street
Here?
and in the creek.
This area.
It's a privately held parcel.
And is that being purchased from the owners of the privately held in order to do all this work? Or are they just giving you permission to do it, or what?
We really, you know, there's a process that we have to go through, and first we go through our environmental process and our project scoping before we really get into discussing right-of-way transactions about what's going to happen. But we're bound by a federalized project to follow the right-of-way process that's outlined by, you know, the right-of-way manual, it's called, which is a federal document. So we'll go through extensive discussions with the property owners about.
A true upstream as well, privately owned? What's not in the right-of-way is privately owned,
Correct.
and downstream?
Correct.
You want to start with comments?
Yeah. I like the project. I think it's got to be done, and it will impact the neighborhood. I have 5 things that just come right out at me. Number one, I do think the loss of those 4 20-inch plus pine trees is a major loss to the neighborhood and to the character of the street. If it's possible to rotate the abutment wall on its axis there, where it bends from the bridge structure itself, in order to save that third 20-inch pine and keep the 28 and the 22, I would. The comment is I would like to see that, study that. The other is this no man's land, which is between Vernon Road, realigned, and the fence which follows the contour of the creek wall there, the embankment. That's a no man's land. If it isn't a public park, if it isn't something, then it's going to be a wooded and dark and dangerous neighborhood, attractive nuisance. So if it is, my comment would be to study the possibilities of putting a nice fence like that wrought iron fence that we were looking at, this one, that your rendering shows, along the abutment wall, not the abutment wall, the, was it stone?
Creek wall.
Creek wall, and at least provide lighting in the grove of trees, so that the public in the future has a lighted area there. It's a safety issue. I think I'm going to leave it up to Kevin to talk about the detailing of the bridge, railing itself, and maybe some of the pilasters and the articulation. But this is replacing a bridge that was built in 1916 originally, and then extended in 1926. There must be something of an architectural nature of that period that could appear in your railing detail that would still pass the MASH test, and maybe somehow get a detail in there that looks a little bit, not Santa Barbara necessarily. This is not the place for arches, but I think something in that period of 1916. That's my comments.
The only other thing I wanted to ask was, did you look at putting stone down here? I know we've seen a couple different creek projects, but just on top of over the concrete or form liner.
Yeah, I could show you a couple pictures under there. I did have, so the original bridge was actually on a sandstone abutment. So you can kind of see through the graffiti haze where the sandstone abutment begins.
Okay, so the whole thing wasn't,
Yeah, and
Sandstone.
then the widening was actually, you could see this a little bit better here. The widening was cast in place. So the original bridge did have a relief, or like a natural sandstone, and we've done similar. So if
Okay.
that's a desire, we could do something similar.
okay. Kevin?
Okay, yeah, it'd be a great project to see come to fruition. I think, just starting with the guardrail, it seems a little bit ordinary and sort of picked out of the catalog. So I'm hoping there's a way that you can enhance it somehow, either with integral color, make it a little bit more, maybe it's a sandstone integral color, so it's at least not a gray concrete. And if there's any option at all to add something to give it some dimension at these little pilasters on the tops, even if it's nothing that's sticking out horizontally, just vertically, so hopefully that will still pass the test. I think that would be something simple that could at least take it away from this very cookie cutter appearance. I would second Howard's concerns about this little, on the South Vernon corner, where it's a grove of trees is planted. I think it either needs to be incorporated somehow into a little park of some sort or something useful. Otherwise, it's going to just attract trash and all sorts of other bad things. And I would imagine the city would have some thoughts about a future sidewalk in front of these houses as well. So it'd be interesting to see how a pathway could at least get you from here to there. These folks can actually get to that side.
No houses
Yeah,
on
there's-
this side.
It's the creek.
Yeah, there's, if we go to
They're a little
the,
further up, but
There's no-
And
No houses on
there's
that
no
side.
houses
No
on that
house on
side.
Creeks, it's a creeks restoration area,
Yeah,
so
so-
that would just extend
So
it.
it's actually just the continuation of what's already there.
there's some houses on
So
the
it's like-
other
This
side.
strip is a creek restoration area.
Yeah, so it'd be a continuation of the creek restoration up through there.
okay, I understand. I just think it's unfortunate to go to all this effort, plant all these trees and rework this, and then have it be separate from being able to enjoy it and use it. Seems like there's an opportunity there.
Yeah, I think so.
That's
We
lost.
could look into that.
And I would say anywhere possible, or anywhere that's, I guess, in close proximity to the public right-of-way, that a wrought iron fence is preferable to chain link. And I would encourage you to study the addition of brick pavers at areas adjacent to the pedestrian ramps, and possibly within the bulb outs themselves, to help delineate, for instance, in this zone and in there, and to help delineate the corners and the actual route for the pedestrians. That's it.
Great. David?
I agree with a lot of the sentiment that's already been given. I think when I've driven down Vernon, especially coming up from this intersection, I see a lot of people. I think people in the neighborhood actually walk on the creek side of the street because it's more pleasant. It's right near the creek. It's a nice visual view. It's not safe, and I know it's not something you guys are typically addressing. But at that corner, I think since that is being improved on, maybe this is a starting point at least. And I thought that comment about there's a way to incorporate even just some kind of pedestrian. It doesn't have to be hardscape, but DG or some kind of natural pathway to kind of get people around that corner and through these improvements. That'd be really nice. And maybe further down Vernon, I mean, it's kind of hard to say you want to have another crosswalk maybe or something or some striping because you already have one at the intersection. But if that improvement's wrapping around the corner, then it's almost like if you follow the path of someone who doesn't know and they're going to walk to the end, now they're crossing a street down in the middle of Vernon versus on the corner, and then that's a little bit unsafe. So maybe as a forward-thinking approach, maybe that is a consideration of a secondary crosswalk right there, or maybe it's just the pathway. But I think something does need to be studied a little bit more in that corner. I think the lighting was a great idea for safety reasons and just for nighttime purposes. It is really dark right there. I would agree with the sentiment about the chain link fence too. If there's a way to maybe make it wrought iron, or to even, if that's expensive, if it's cheaper just because of cost and purchasing volume, to extend a revised or restudied design of the guardrail further to kind of pass by that one little sycamore that's on the Presto Pasta side of the street. I think it was a sycamore. Maybe that you guys had a rendering, I guess. This guy. Sorry. Right there.
Oh, the tree?
Yeah,
Melaleuca.
Melaleuca, yeah. It's a nice opportunity right there underneath it to put something, whether it's a bench or a sitting spot, or maybe you just run that, revised, guardrail design of the bridge past it to kind of keep continuity material. But whether it's chain link or a material that matches the final guardrail design, I think that would be appropriate, or more appropriate than the chain link in that specific location. I would also just touch on something I talked about earlier with the height, is confirming that one particular tree near that crosswalk right there that we're discussing is at least a little over 6 feet to help with visibility. I'm sure that's something that's an easy conversation to work out. And that's it. I think Board Member Moore highlighted pretty well the issues with the guardrail, even if it's something as simple as thickening those pilasters. So it's very linear right now. So I think if there's a way to break that up somehow by articulation or material or color, or even availability of what those forms look like, that obviously they're still tested. I think something like that would help. Otherwise, it's a good project, and I support it.
All right, great.
For those things.
I have a lot of the same comments, so I'm just going to summarize. Since indefinite continuance, right, with the following comments, and board members can chime in. But I think overall, the board's in support of the project and the improvements that will take place. Let's see, there are some things that we would like restudied. We'll start first by the Vernon side of the corner of Vernon and De La Vina, to study ways of maybe implementing like a pedestrian path or something within that parkway. Also to integrate the permeable pavers within the bulb outs of each corner. And then also for the guardrails, to provide a wrought iron guardrail where it is adjacent to like the pedestrian walkway. And on the same, at the same time, to provide a site plan, basically I think we're looking at the existing, but to provide a proposed site plan so that we can clearly see how where like the fencing is, and without the structures, especially on the Vernon side showing, just so we can see how it's going to be resolved, especially between this driveway and the creek, knowing that that'll be a change with these buildings gone. But to also show the difference of where the wrought iron is going and where the chain link would be going.
And you meant wrought iron fence, right? Not guardrail?
Yes. Well, yeah. I'm talking about the fencing, not the guardrail, not the bridge, not this.
Barrier rail.
Yes. Talking about the fencing. Yeah.
Thank you.
And then for the bridge railing, to study possibly doing an integral color. And then also look at providing some just additional articulation as much as possible, knowing that it has to be tested, but maybe adding some additional articulation at the pilasters. And then to also look at keeping these very large pine trees and seeing how the design could be edited to maintain those, especially these three. So. And to also study possibly planting taller street trees in the parkway. Did anyone have anything else?
I have,
So
I have some to add. Study the possibility of having some lighting at each end of the bridge abutments on each side. As, 1, 2, 3, 4. The lighting. Do you have that?
The rendering is the easiest way to see it. Street view and rendering.
So you don't have anything in connection with these elements?
There may be existing on the downstream. We'll look at that to make sure there's
It
adequate
would be a
lighting
very
on it.
nice way to enhance the bridge experience and light the crossing.
Sure.
And also, just a point of clarification on the difference between a guardrail and a fence. If you introduce pedestrian pathways and you go to the edge and you have to have a guardrail, I certainly would put a guardrail rather than a fence where you have a pedestrian path. But other than that, if it's just wilderness and you want to keep people out or control whatever it is.
Well, yeah,
So-
I
so
think
what-
that's what I was saying. You were
Yeah,
saying then chain
just-
link.
Yeah, I
We're
think-
talking about fencing.
I think a metal beam guardrail when you say guardrail, so you're talking.
Guardrail, when we're saying guardrail, it's more the height rather than
42 inch.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but
Fencing.
we're talking about fencing.
Fence is 5 feet.
Fencing.
Well, 42, 5 feet, 6 feet. Yeah, I understand where you're coming from, absolutely. There's actually one clarification I wanted to make about the bridge railing. Now, if we go outside of an approved railing, what that means is the city would be bound to build a mock-up and crash test it. So it's very complicated in making modified bridge rails. We'll look for stuff that is already mash tested, so we don't have to spend $300,000-$400,000 to.
Maybe color. We could look at color.
You
Yeah,
could
we
look
can-
at
we can look
color.
at color,
if the-
absolutely.
Or you could also, you could look at other, other options that have been.
We will.
What's the difference between crash and mash?
Mash testing is the new lingo. It's the, I forget the actual acronym for it. It's something really obscure.
What is the
Okay,
net
we have
effect
to
to the
actually-
railing? Does it make it, like crash testing is for strength and mash testing is for texture?
Crash testing actually is an older term. It's now mash tested.
Synonyms.
Okay.
And it's, I forget the actual acronym
Yeah.
for it, so I apologize.
We just have to move on because we're
Yeah.
over time.
And Amy, your comment on the trees. So those trees are approved street trees. They're going to get 20 plus feet in height.
Okay,
So
great. Did anyone else have any other comments? Okay, so that would be the motion.
To full board or consent?
Sorry,
Full board or consent?
full board.
Okay.
Any comments on the wall, on the channel walls?
Well, thank you. Actually, that's a good point, because I was also going to look into either adding stone or form line. I guess, how do other board members feel? True
I support
stone
that.
or
I support that, along with colored concrete.
true stone or colored, like form liner concrete?
Can I ask a question for clarification? If it's a federally funded project, I'm worried that where do the requests kick you guys out of even doing this project out of feasibility? I support those kind of comments, but I see these other aspects that are very important as well. So I would like
Why
that.
don't we have them look into it?
Yeah,
And then they come
right.
back and they tell us what's
Sure.
possible.
I only want to
And
preface
if
that.
it's not possible, then, but, yeah, that would
We'll
that would be the preference, and you can tell us what, yeah.
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 So, does someone want to second that?
Also gonna.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. Okay, thank you.
Thank you guys.
This project.
So Kathy, David, second. All right. Moving on to Item number 3, 431 Old Coast Highway. This is final review, and action may be taken. Project was last reviewed May 7th, 2018. It's a proposal for additions and alterations to a parcel developed for 4 residential units. And we're going to have to wait for David to come back. So
Yeah, you have 5
we'll
minutes
take
to
a
your
short, we're going to
presentation.
take a short break.
That'll be plenty.
5-minute break. And, should we just go through the items that we had on here? Okay, so first was the proposed architecture is acceptable as designed. And then on the site plan, restudy and relocate the front fencing to allow for future sidewalk and development and landscaping along one or both sides of the driveway.
I think what we'll do is jump right into the landscape plan on this, and we can come back to the site plan. And Chuck's got this one
So
worked out.
currently, in the last visit we were here, we were showing landscape out here, and then we found out that the city has active plans, in the works to replace the sidewalk. So we went all the way back to just putting some vines on the fence, and a little bit of embellishment around here that will probably have to be removed at the moment that happens, but it's to be replaced. So we've accommodated the future sidewalk.
Okay. And then study providing pedestrian access to the site.
Right, so we've got, I'm going to move to the site plan. What we did is we introduced a gate within the vehicular fence. So I'm going to turn back here and get to that appropriate sheet. Here we go. So what we've got is we introduced a pedestrian gate as a part of the vehicular gate. So basically, there's you can walk up to it, and it releases a latch, and then the pedestrian gate will swing right from the vehicular gate. So I think that was really the only way we struggled, given the existing space between these 2 units and the width of the required driveway. But I think that'll work for bikers coming up and wanting to come and go without having to open the vehicular gate.
Okay. And then it was just that. And then the last, I think, was study consolidating the trash location.
Right. So we went back and looked at that again, and we decided to consolidate the trash in the central area here, and then open the doors away from the approach, and then create some landscaped areas on either side of the entry gates. And I think Chuck's got that better delineated on his landscape plan.
Yeah, so now we've got some plantings in front of that thing, and as you come in, and then some trees and some, and then Bob Cunningham, last time he was here, he asked me to look at more species of trees, so I wanted to show you that I did respond to that. And we have the common open area, and then I think there was a little bit of talk about, before I think these were gravel, and I've upgraded them so that everyone has a real patio now.
Great.
What is that?
No, yeah, 6 was, it's a paver patio.
Okay. Has any, materials?
Yeah, so we're hoping to get final here, and we're looking at the body of the building, and then we've got our trim color. We've got our doors, windows, and our wood stain for the gates around the front gates, and then the roof color.
Okay. And then there are details that we can go through too.
I've got the architectural details I can walk you through. So, just take you through the plans. We've got the ceilings worked out. The roof plans are drawn and then referenced to the architectural details which are located a little further down the way. So this is our entry wall here with the metal steel supports at approximately 6 feet on center. The architectural details, we've got the eyebrow over the garage, and then, this is over the garage, that's it, no, entry, garage, rake, eave is a soffitted eave, and we've got our typical gutter profile as it meets the flat roof, our cupola, our entry columns at the 4 entrances.
Where is that?
This is at the entry of that's this area right in here.
So it's exposed.
Right, it's exposed. It's exposed split face, and as you recall, the base of the fences that line the driveway are old split face, and we're facing them with just the 2-inch split face to match this. So we're basically putting a split face veneer on the existing walls that line that driveway.
Okay.
What color are the pavers?
Pavers. Let's see. So we've got some, let's go to the civil plan. We've got permeable pavers on a portion of the entry. Let's see, where's our civil plan? Here we go. So that would be this stretch in here. This is existing concrete. I would think a gray.
Yeah, in the gray range.
Yeah.
I thought they were going to handle that, or the actual choosing of it. 'cause
Yeah, it's just,
permeable.
the idea would be to go with a gray, something just like this. On this area, this would be the new paving.
And then there's flush curbs within that.
Yeah, that really doesn't happen where does that even, just down?
Pretty much every.
It goes right into the side of the wall, yeah, so that actually just runs right into these raised split face walls, so that condition, I don't even know if it might happen down at the apron down there. And then right here it would happen, I suppose, yeah, that's it.
That conclude your
That concludes our presentation, yes.
Okay. So we'll open public comment. Seeing no one. Go to questions from the board. Kevin, you want to start?
Sure. I guess while we're on the paver discussion, so this is going to be gray, fence is gray. What happens next door? Do we have a photo of that?
Yeah, we've
What
got photos
happens
of
over
the
here?
street. So you can see this is the blue fence, so that's our site, and you get a feeling looking up and down the streets. I'm upside down on that, but
You're asking about
Yeah.
that, right?
And then on the other end, there's another hedge. It's all sort of landscaped and overgrown.
That's where that sidewalk's going through.
Okay. And then all of this concrete remains?
the bulk of the concrete remains. We designed the garages to not, we didn't want to have to pull that up. It triggered so much, and it was such a big deal. So we kept the bulk of it, and then we cut out the areas for the planting, and we were able to get enough permeable on the driveway that comes up. Yeah.
Okay. I think we made the comment last time, or one of the comments was to check in with the building department about a separate route for a pedestrian versus the vehicular way. Did you talk with them?
Well, you mean in terms of on-site, or in terms of, on-site? So what we did was, my understanding was that there was because we only had vehicular gates into the property, that we wanted to study how to get bicycles or pedestrians into the site. So we introduced the man gate within the vehicular gate. So the man gate.
I understand that, but did you talk with them about that?
Well, we spoke to them about the sidewalk down along the frontage, Yeah, I think that was, I recall that was the context of that discussion. It was the what to do about how our landscape and walls met the future sidewalk. And
I think
that's what
That was
Chuck has addressed.
one of the comments, yeah. So just fair warning, having gone through a similar situation, that you may encounter some difficulty with that.
In terms of?
Separating the
Having it
pedestrian from the vehicular circulation.
With that,
Having it all be in the driveway, basically not having a separate path. That's what you're trying, right? Yeah, so all he's saying is it may be an issue. They may require you to actually have your own path.
It's just so difficult because these are retaining walls. You know.
We get
I
it's
understand.
more of a,
yeah.
So just something to,
Yeah, I think we
Just
take the
something to
gates
look
off
into.
then. Yeah, okay, I appreciate that.
yeah, and it's not even the gates, it's cars versus having cars on the same surface as people. So, then I guess, so we would have the same pavers. So Chuck, you've got
Yeah,
pavers here, they would match throughout?
that's right.
Okay. Great.
David? Questions?
Actually, can you go to A 9.1? The cupola, the last time you presented them, were they shown? All right. Were the cupola shown as, was there glass up there before, or were they always shown with the vents?
They always had the vent.
And what kind of material is the vent going to be?
Well, it would just be galvanized, painted.
Painted galvanized?
Yeah.
Okay. And then I noticed I was looking at the bigger elevations, it doesn't look like on the outside and inside corners, it's probably just, it's all simple stucco, no trim work or anything like that on the buildings, correct?
On the buildings, right?
Yeah,
It's
okay.
just all stucco, just turns.
And then would that match up here?
What sheet are you on?
Detail 9 on sheet A9.1? I guess 8 and 9, they're
Right,
similar.
yes, so
What would that material be then?
this would be metal, but painted out the body color. So this is body color, that's metal, and it's painted out body color, and then this is, I would go with the same wood as the trim of the building, and that would be the white.
And then what about that section right in the middle that's supporting, where those vents are set within?
Yeah, that would be the body color metal. So this whole lower thing would
Metal piece.
just be metal. Yeah.
Metal piece, okay. Thanks. And then, I was following up on the same question, I guess, with Board Member Moore about the trash enclosures. The ones at the back of the property look like they're out of the vehicular traffic way. Did you guys ever explore on the one closer towards the main gates, flipping the door so you weren't having to stand in the driveway?
We shuffled around that
Yeah.
quite a bit, and we looked at all kinds of locations. It seems like where we've got it here, the idea was to cloak it right into the geometry of the fence, and then it really becomes, you don't really notice it from either side. And I think after studying it, that kind of became, it's a great location, but how do we hide it? And I think we've hidden it, so
Okay.
it was a tough one.
Okay. No further question. Oh, I'm sorry, last question. You might have discussed this already. Do you have a sample of that paving material in the back rear patios? Okay. No further questions.
Howard, questions? If you don't have any questions, we could go straight into comments.
I think this project is
And they're here.
ready.
Yeah,
We
they're
have
here.
PDA already?
Yes, they're here for a final.
I think this project is ready for final. The only thing I would like to say is that this extent of gray concrete in the courtyard, it would be great if you could relieve that somehow with inset tile or saw cutting or some kind of texturing or whatever. It's going to be pretty boring and flat. And you've got some nice, this by the way still shows concrete, but you're going to do permeable paving on the driveway, right?
Is that the demo? Yeah, right.
This is
it's
the
permeable.
proposed.
Yeah, the
Yeah,
landscape and the civil show it, right.
From the unit design on the way out, it makes a lot of sense for this property. But the only thing is that concrete courtyard. Scoring would help.
I think scoring is a pretty, yeah, I think that can be done. Yeah, that's something we can do for sure.
That's it.
Good. Okay. Comments, Kevin?
I agree. It's a nice project. We usually want to see all the materials, so I think we need to see the paver and make sure that's appropriate.
Could we condition them to be the color of the body, if that's the only item?
You're gonna need landscape review, so there is gonna be one probably.
There's going to be a consent?
Because Bob's not here, so that
Okay, understood.
just to throw that out there.
Between now and then, I would also like you to check in code-wise and talk with either the building department or somebody to talk a little bit more about the entrance, the pedestrian entrance.
A pedestrian, would that be in the building department? I'm confused on the, yeah?
Yeah.
That would be, they would have a requirement on, yeah, okay.
I think it has to do with
Egress,
egress, yeah.
emergency egress.
You have to carry it out to the street.
But
Well, all
anyways,
these buildings have rear doors
It's
that
more a
go out.
suggestion, and
It's a
if
suggestion.
you don't need it, I
Yeah,
think
great.
it's also just trying to help.
Okay,
Save
got
you
it,
some
yeah,
time.
yeah, I see the concern if someone comes out here and then
Yeah.
they're blocked in the, okay.
Correct. So, and it would also be great so that when you come back, if it is truly an issue, you can somehow have dealt with it, and we can give you a final approval.
Okay.
So, that's it.
Great. David?
I couldn't recall I don't see it on the plans now, but from the last meeting, maybe you discussed it. What's the material of the doors and windows?
It's metal,
Metal?
yeah.
Aluminum?
It's painted, yeah, so they'll
Painted.
be clad painted.
Okay,
Yeah, the front door and the garage doors.
okay. So that would one comment is maybe when you guys come back for consent is put some doors and window details on there.
I've got them, and when these were updated, they missed but
Gotcha.
I've got them with me
Okay.
right here.
Cool.
I'll include them in the set that's on consent.
Okay. And then I didn't see any landscape lighting.
None proposed.
None proposed? Okay. And the last comment would be to those two trash enclosures. Actually, the sheet that you're on right now is perfect. That are at the front edge, right there at the gate. I think the similar issue that is being pointed out by board member Moore about the vehicular access and safety. I like the locations of them. I think if I'm looking at it, and if you flip them and you have the doors face towards the units, then they're going to see that access all the time. And I know we kind of commented on that, but I think that's maybe the lesser of the two evils. So I would suggest maybe exploring flipping those two locations so the doors are on the pathway side versus forcing people at night maybe to go out into the driveway and kind of, I could see someone maybe opening those doors in the trash can and the gates open up on them or something like that,
Almost like doors on, one door on the inside, because it'd be nice not to have to take the trash around to the.
That's true.
We
Yeah.
That would be a good.
add additional doors.
If it could fit, yeah. I know that might mess with the footprint a little bit, but if that's a solution that works better, I would just maybe study the access a little bit more for safety considerations. Otherwise, the rest of the project is great, and I'm fine with it.
Great. Yeah, I think that was going to be, if you could put one on the inside, that probably would benefit the residents. This was the only one that I was questioning location-wise because,
The door open.
yeah, and if you're in there and it's open, then it's going to hit it. So this one is out of reach, so there would be a little bit more time. But I would take a look at this one, and maybe it does go on this side, and if it's kind of built in to be masked with the fence, it might not be a big deal, but this one where the door actually hits, it might be an issue. And you're putting a new wood fence on here. I just thought of, what is it, just going to be like a stained wood?
Yeah, it's
Like
it's
a natural stained.
horizontal 1-inch boards stained out the deeper color
Okay,
of
so
the
that,
wood as the doors on the building.
okay,
Yeah.
all right, great. So, because, as I was mentioning, because Bob's not here and we need him to sort of review the landscape plan. Can take a stab at the motion. It would be that it's ready for final, but that, or I guess it would be continued 1 week to consent with the following comments, to have the landscape architect on the board review the plans, to add the paver material and the door and window color to the materials board, to add in the door and window details, look at study the trash, the door to the trash enclosure that is overlapping the driveway gate. Possibly look at putting a door inside of the fenced-in area for the residents to access it. And then just a suggestion from the board to look into the pedestrian access to the site. Just for the site egress, and just to assure that you won't have any issues going into the building department.
Okay.
But that's just a suggestion to help the
Does it-
project.
Does the board think that the scoring the concrete is any
Yeah.
good idea?
Yeah, and look at scoring the concrete on the
Motor court.
in the motor court to. Yeah.
Thank you.
Someone like to second?
I'll second. Did you second already?
Yeah, you can.
I don't want to take it away from you. No, you want a second? Hey, you.
All right.
Second it and add one item of discussion.
David seconded, and then under discussion.
Just to provide exterior lighting samples, images. I don't think we saw those last.
For the landscape plan?
No, for the exterior of the buildings.
I've got no exterior lighting. What I'm doing is just, I've got recessed lights underneath the
underneath that
the
porch?
entry.
Okay.
They're on the electrical plan, but I'm not proposing
Okay.
any exterior lighting in
Okay.
the building. Yeah.
Never mind.
I mean, other
I'll
than
still second it.
that, yeah.
All right, great.
Eve lighting.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Good,
Thank you.
Thank you.
Nice little project.
Thank you.
Okay. Item number 4. 632 East De La Guerra Street. Concept review, continued item. Proposal for the second concept review needs comments only. Proposal for a new residential unit and garage.
Thank you.
Consists of the demolition of a detached accessory building on a site with a single unit residential building and the construction of a 2-story 1,600 square foot structure containing a 2-car garage, laundry, and studio residential unit. Project requires staff hearing officer review for an open yard modification. If you can state your names.
Hello, my name is Carl Cross, principal of Cross Design Studio.
I have the motion here if we want to
Great, yeah.
read it.
Can you,
It's continued 2 weeks to full board with these comments. The proposed mass bulk and scale, the proposed project appears to be compatible with the neighborhood. However, a final determination cannot be made without review of photograph documentation of the surrounding neighborhood. And provide photographs of the surrounding structures on Pico and both sides of De La Guerra Street. Motion carried 4-0.
okay,
David was absent.
Okay,
yeah.
Yes.
We could walk through the photos. and-
sure, just to kind of fill in, per your request, just taking a look at the, both sides of the street and kind of documenting both sides of the streets on De La Guerra and then Pico. And then just analyzing it a little bit more where De La Guerra is a little bit more tighter, a little bit more cleaner, a little bit more presentable. Landscape's a little bit more manicured. And then kind of on the reverse there in the back, Pico is a little bit closer together. It's a little bit more eclectic and a little bit funkier in the back. And so that's why the concept of the mullet. So it's business in front on De La Guerra and we'll party on back on Pico.
Where's the front of the lot? Images? Is it on this other page?
Well, I've got one
the back
here again. So there's the back. Front is right here.
Yeah.
And a few of these neighboring ones, actually, these three, I think, go all the way back. So some of the back ones are, you know, similar to that, and a couple of other garage is as well. This is the back.
This is moving,
in the back.
going
Yeah.
up, moving down the street, basically, right?
Yes.
And then this is the opposite side.
Yes.
So this is directly across.
That's correct. Yeah, that's
Okay,
a Jehovah's
that's
Witness building right there, and
Okay.
that's right across from there. Yes.
And then basically going back down.
Yes.
Okay. And this is the back of the property.
That is correct. That's an existing structure that we are going to be removing.
Okay.
So just looking at that, decided to go in a different direction from the all plaster kind of Spanish tile roofs on that. And that is directly across the street, and it's like a this is the front of it, and you can see that edge kind of peeking up here. I kind of got that. I think that's kind of important. It's kind of like an overlapping roof with a metal roof on there.
Is it part of the house?
It's part of the back. Yeah, there's an addition onto the back of that house. In the back there, another unit that rises a couple stories above. So this would be the front of the project on Pico, where the roof was changed out. Kind of broke up the massing a little bit and added this kind of raised dormer, some vertical siding on the wood, horizontal siding on the garage doors here, and then this little form right here is exterior plaster panel here and here as well. And these are some wood siding guards right here that kind of carry that concept through as well. And definitely a little bit more traditional doors on the side here and then on the front and the back as well.
Okay.
But all the size, bulk, and scale and everything just remains the same.
The footprint
Yeah,
the
no,
footprint
everything is the same.
remained. It was
Yes.
just the style.
Exactly.
Okay.
Heights are the same.
Yes.
Does that conclude your presentation?
Yes.
Okay. So we'll open public comment, and we have one speaker slip, Richard Rosenwald.
Yes.
You can come up here.
Thank you, and I apologize to the viewing audience for my opening behavior last time. Hello, Carl.
How you doing?
I'd like to thank Carl for keeping me in the loop. He sent me some plans this morning.
And so you have 2 minutes.
Fine. Overall, I like the direction. I like the fact that he's added some kind of wood siding. I think the siding's too busy. It's too T111 looking. If you wanted to use a T111 product with maybe a 12-inch center and throw some battens on it, I think it would.
Yeah, and you're talking to us.
It would be nice. I also, one of the main things I find too busy still, which I liked in the first design. In the first design, this element here, the stairwell was. Where's our garage elevation? Here we go. This was all stucco. This angled wood and all this stuff, it's really busy to me. I can see if you want to have the wood on this side or even keep it up here, but I like the last design you had where this was a clean stucco all the way up to here, and then this was stair blocked up. Every so often you had a zig on it. This is just too busy. And I think it would be kind of a mix of the things, and it would also ground all the stucco that's going on the first level. I noticed that you brought a cantilever into here where there wasn't before. Kind of makes sense, kind of brings the forms out. I'd still love to see a trellis, so I don't know, or a rose bush or something here that could kind of, slow growing. There wouldn't be a lot of maintenance that could kind of come up along here. Couple other things. Does the light have to live there? Can it live under the cantilever? Okay, I've talked about the railings. Can you make this a roof deck? Not that it's my concern, on this gable end, where you project the 3 feet out, or can you not have a deck above a 3-foot garage projection?
You're just making comments, and we're not going to do it back and
Fine,
forth.
all right. The only other thing is, I didn't quite see an elevation match here. I like this projection here. This, to me, I think could be, since you're not on the solar side where you're concerned about height, it'd be nice if there was a roof line break. And since this portion is wider, I believe, or not as wide.
Okay, that's your 2 minutes.
All right, if this portion is wider, it'd be nice if the roof line kind of changed. Maybe here, since you've got it changing there.
And just for our knowledge, which
Where do I
property
live?
is
I live
yours?
directly across the street. Here.
On Pico?
On Pico.
Okay, so you're in
I'm
632.
directly across looking.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, and this form right here is this building in the back.
And that is very funky. Only other thing I'd say is, I love the metal siding. Pardon me, the metal roof. I'd love to see it. The option of I'd rather have you put a corrugated metal roof on it, something like the mill that they did. If the ABR would go with that, and maybe they wouldn't. But for the money you were going to spend on 2-piece mission tile, you could do a steel roof, a standing seam steel roof, which would go with my roof.
That's what is being shown.
Yes, but it says or asphalt shingles,
Okay.
so I want to emphasize
All
that.
right, great.
Thank you.
Thank you.
One other thing, I won't be here in 2 weeks. This isn't going to be
Well,
wrapped up in 2 weeks, is it?
we're going to find out. Probably not in 2 weeks, but it may be back.
Right, it's going to go to
Planning,
staff.
yeah, staff will be able to tell you
All right,
the
thank you.
process. Yeah, thanks.
Thank you, Carl.
Thank you.
Okay. Would anyone else in the public like to speak about this project? Seeing no one, we'll close public comment, go to questions from the board. David, do you want to start?
Yeah, on A301, that west elevation's a good view of the profiles for the roof lines. What's that roof assembly? It looks really thin in that elevation. What's that framing assembly going to look like to get that so slim?
Talking about this?
Yeah.
Oh, the top there. Just cantilevering. Well, looking at other options on what kind of the framing is that and what kind of exposing the framing or keeping it concealed.
Because right now, is that like 4 inches or?
Yeah, it's about 6 inches, yeah.
And the roof line angle is because you're trying to match the existing profiles, or?
No.
I'm just trying to minimize the height?
Yes.
The appearance of the height?
Correct.
Gotcha. Okay, no further questions.
Kevin?
So, colors, is this a clear stain on the cedar?
I would say yes. I would say the roofing material leaning more towards a lighter color, lighter gray, almost like a zinc or a kind of galvanized, and then kind of a natural color wood on that, and then the stucco either a light gray or a white.
Okay, and the windows?
The windows, either they're going to be a natural to match or contrasting with a metal frame.
Okay. The railings, are they going to be painted to match or stained to match?
Yeah, they'll be matching, yes.
Natural. How far is that Is that recessed that far, or is it just the shadow is being?
That's the
dramatic?
shadow, yeah. It recesses about, I think it's about 7 feet.
Oh, wow. Let's go back. Okay. And that's, what material would that be?
Plaster.
Plaster and then a door?
Yes.
All right, are these going to be pretty much flush mounted with the cedar, or are they going to be recessed?
I would say flush.
Okay. Thanks.
Howard, questions?
No.
No questions? You want to start with comments?
This is really improved since the last time. And you're on the verge of actually accomplishing something that would be really nice. And I think that it lies in the materials. You have 5 materials: a roof, concrete, stucco, wood, siding and railings and things, all natural, and you have your doors and windows. I think the comment about I think the railings may be a little busy. You have, this says natural cedar guardrail, and then you have vertical cedar siding. I think you could maybe simplify these forms of which are decks, balconies, and stairs, make those solid stucco things, and run your siding horizontal cedar siding, so that you have reduced the amount of different things you're doing with the same material. Try it. I mean, it'd be very sculptural. And I do think that this opening that you have in the lower level here, which is creates a hole here in this piece of stucco that wants to be, I think, a solid mass. I would go around into that little foyer from the side, if you can, and make this a solid form, or put a little window in there. But at the moment, it seems like it's weakened.
Okay. There is a little window on the other side.
I think this building is very simple, and because of the simplicity, you have an opportunity to get great forms with less, and just make the details nice.
Sure.
That's my comment.
Okay. Kevin?
I agree. I think it's a nice little project. The guardrails, can go either way. It really depends on how they are detailed. And Howard's right. This whole project will depend on the selection of the materials and the details. And I think you'll probably end up with a little thicker fascia on your roof.
Yeah, that's right.
But that remains to be seen. So I think all in all, it's a nice project, and I would say that it's so reliant on the details and on the materials that the asphalt shingles would be a really unfortunate event if that's where it went.
Okay.
Yeah.
Those are my comments.
David?
Yeah, I think the material selection's nice, and I think that adds a lot of character to this project for the size of it. There's, in a good way, I'd say there's a lot going on, but not necessarily, overkill.
Sure.
I think there's a little refinements, as board member Witosh pointed out, maybe in the guardrails. I don't know what that looks like, but if there's a way to maybe, right now when I see the guardrails, they do stand off a little bit out of sync with the rest of the kind of flow that's happening with the rest of the building. So I don't know if you borrow some cues of some other materials you're already doing there, or some material combinations, but I think that's a really easy gesture that you could probably just restudy. When I'm looking on the west elevation, so I'm looking on the side profile of the roof lines, and I'm not I guess maybe I'm reading it wrong, but I'm not seeing how they jive up with the south elevations, and it looks almost like there's a pitch break happening that I'm not reading on the. Okay.
It's this line.
Yeah, I don't see
Pitch
that
break happening here
happening on the
at
west.
the end of this form, and then in front here as well.
Yeah.
Yes, when I look at the west elevation, I don't quite see those roof lines match that way. But maybe I'm reading
Might
that
break at the
wrong.
same.
You don't show the pitch break.
Oh, okay.
That's what's throwing me off.
It breaks from the top, from the ridge.
Right there.
Oh,
So
you're right.
Doesn't show.
Breaks down from here, yeah.
Okay. And I think there's maybe one extra eave potentially, because maybe from that profile you'd only see
around,
two
right.
potentially. So that's really small, but I think that'll help kind of just the presentation. Obviously, it'll show a little bit different image. But when I look at that west elevation, I think I appreciate what you're trying to do with the height-wise and not, making it appear more massive. I actually thought maybe if the plates were dropped and there was a steeper pitch, it might help that. Something with that elevation I think needs a little bit more potentially.
Okay.
I don't think it needs the roof angles necessarily, but maybe it's just something on the siding because it's a very flat facade right now. It's probably the least dynamic out of all of them. It is the west elevation, so you don't want to punch a bunch of windows into it. I get that part. But maybe because of what your material is going to be, you're going to be limited by the height of the actual boards available. Maybe it's something as simple as even adding like a Z flashing detail or something to transition and maybe start to model that patterning or something just to kind of help a little. It needs a little bit, I think. Not a lot, though.
Okay.
So I think the material's already there, but potentially a flashing element or some kind of small articulation could help just give a little bit more to that particular elevation.
Okay.
And then I think Board Member Moore actually started a question that was maybe look at the materials of the doors and windows, or not the materials, but what the projection is and how that's occurring. I think even that would be something that would help on those elevations to kind of provide more volume, I guess, in a sense, in that plane. And even though I like that you're saying wood, I know there's a cost issue with that. I would even maybe challenge you to maybe look at an alternative material, because even that, if you start to look at metal or something now, I think that even difference in material in certain elevations would help start to act like this little punches through the wood, because there's a lot of wood right now going on. I'm not saying it's a make or break for me. I'm just saying maybe it's an exploration you do to see if there's a value to that or not.
Okay.
But I think that's another easy thing that could just provide more to the elevations right now.
Sure.
Otherwise, the project is fine for me.
Thank you.
Is that it? Okay. Yeah, I'm in favor of the direction that you kind of took this from the last meeting. I agree with a lot of the comments. I also with the comment about the metal roof. The metal roof with this vertical siding, I think, is a really nice combination. I liked Howard's comment about this, and just even looking at it in plan, to just have this volume and potentially enter from the side, so you kind of retain that wall below the railing as a thought. I think this is nice with the railing here at the balcony, but potentially looking at maybe this is a stucco wall. I also think this needs to be, I think it's just missing having those stairs come up.
Okay, yeah, they're in shadow. They're
Is that
coming
what?
up. Yeah.
Okay.
I could dot them.
Oh, I see.
Coming up,
Yeah.
and then they come back up here.
I guess as far as just like seeing the rail continue up. But, oh yeah, and then they're probably behind here.
Yes.
Okay. But in just looking at that, to kind of keep that volume, but overall, I agree with the rest of the comments, so I won't go through them all. But would someone like to make a motion?
Madam Chair?
Yes.
If I may, it sounds like a lot of what is being discussed right now is detailing, and it sounds like the size, bulk, and scale, so it might be a good time to pass this on to staff hearing officer. And if you could please make comment on the thing that requires the mod, which I believe is the open yard configuration.
Right. So which is what we
Yeah, that hasn't
commented on.
changed.
That hasn't changed. It was right. It was like
12, 15,
to
35 square feet.
Yeah.
Like 35 square feet was the modification. Someone want to craft a motion to send it on to the staff hearing officer. Okay,
Do we need to
so
do we need to
I
do
will.
this? We don't.
So we
All
only
right.
do the, no, at this time we do not need the project compatibility analysis.
Cool. All right, so the motion would be to continue this, basically an indefinite continuance to the staff hearing officer with the following comments: that the board is supportive of the open yard modification because it is not a it's not a large decrease of the open yard requirement. And there's no negative impact. And that the board is supportive of the architectural style that is being presented. The board would like the applicant to study just the use of the railing on the south elevation, and potentially moving the access, the pedestrian access to the side of the side wall. Yeah, to the east wall, and maybe switch the doorway and the window. So to locate, at the garage
That's
level.
good. That works.
And to also study the roof lines and the structural members in the eaves, at the eaves. Would anyone else like to add?
Well, there was something about if you actually get down to this roof, the roof profile is going to be a little thicker than you.
Yes.
So that's,
You showed. And
to
do you
study
have
the
a preference
roof
for standing
profiles.
seams, batten seams, or what?
I would say if it's standing, it would be minimal. It would be almost flat. Yeah.
Maybe a rolled seam or something.
Yes, exactly.
Be careful with the water on that.
Okay.
All right, and for the roofing material, the board prefers the standing seam metal roof.
Do other board members feel that the west elevation needs anything, or is it fine as proposed?
As far as?
I just challenge them to restudy and maybe provide some kind of articulation to break up that flatness of that facade. Just 'cause
I don't, but
Okay.
how do other board members feel about the west elevation?
Well, what's wrong with it?
Nothing wrong with it.
Okay.
Study it for what reason?
Articulation. There's so much material and, these projections going on all these other elevations. That's the flattest.
The flatness of the west elevation.
Or providing some
How
kind of
many
relief
board
or
members
articulation.
would want the west elevation studied? Okay. So 2 to fail.
Fail.
Your call.
Anything else? But also that the board's looking forward to seeing the detailing come together for this project because it's going to be very important for all.
Me too.
Do you have landscaping that will be?
I would say maybe
So,
the front.
so to provide a landscape plan to show what would be proposed, and if there's anything that would occur in the outdoor, the common outdoor space also.
You want colors? And is this PDA? No.
No. We're just sending it on
Just
to the
comments,
staff.
SHO.
It's just, to the staff hearing officer. So, details and color board and all that would come next.
Great.
So someone want to second?
I'll do it.
Howard, second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you.
Coming along.
Thanks.
Yes, so we do need to up to second to let you know when it's
Okay.
Sure. So it's a separate or complete.
We're on to item number 5, which was 730 North Milpas.
They are. What's this here?
No, I was not. I didn't mean to give that to you. We gave that to Matthew.
Here's a pointer.
How's it going?
All right, so new item, concept review. Action may be taken. Project requires a waiver for an alternative parking landscape design. It's a proposal for a remodel of an existing cafe and auto body shop. Consists of an interior remodel to expand the existing restaurant. Exterior work includes a new ADA path of travel, extensive remodel of the outdoor seating areas, new trash and tire enclosure, new site wall and fencing, and the addition of new planting areas, as well as a reconfiguration and restripe of the existing parking lot. So you can state your names.
Chair and fellow board members, Ed DeVicente, architect at DMHA.
Hey there, I'm Robert Richards, landscape architect.
Very good. So this is the Shop Cafe on Milpas. Turn to some photos here. Just a quick tour around and to kind of highlight some of the issues with the project that led to what we're proposing today. So coming along Milpas from the south, here's the transition of the building from the neighbor property to the dining room is beyond this, and then the order counter up just ahead of that. So here's a view of the order counter once you get to the other side. It's a covered over area with some planter boxes, and the main dining room is just inside up a little ramp. And as you turn is where the food comes out, and so we've got a little awning to cover that area, some of the condiments, etc. The property is shared with Jay's Tires, and the parking lot is shared as well. So we have a outdoor dining on the corner, existing patio. This was never permitted or approved, even though we all know it's been there for quite a long time. So we're taking the opportunity to get it permitted by doing a nicer redesign, which Robert will take you through. Across the street, this is across Milpas. You can get a sense of the building and the equipment screening and the outdoor patio. Again, coming around Milpas from De La Guerra, the outdoor dining patio. Here you get a better shot of Jay's Tires and the parking lot and their bays. And again, the equipment as well. And this last one is sort of the offices. This is the automotive office, one of the bays, and this is our rear door for a back of house area. So on Plan 2 on AS 101 is the existing configuration. So again, Milpas Street, turning the corner to De La Guerra where the drive entrance is. There's 8 parking spaces. Previously, there was used tire storage and a small trash enclosure, and then the outdoor patio, again with some landscaping, the monument sign as you saw, and some outdoor seating. And then the auto shop with their 1, 2, 3 bays, and it extended in further into the building. This was a former office for the auto shop, as this is existing office to remain. And then the restaurant, which is quite small, as you can see, but the kitchen and dining area is smaller than the kitchen. So the proposed project is to expand the restaurant into a portion of the auto shop. So back of house expansion here, and we'll look at it in floor plan, a little more details to give you the lay of the land. So the existing dining room is about 456 square feet. The kitchen was actually about the same. So the expansion is really for cold storage, dry storage, and a dishwashing area. And this is already constructed, and there's an enforcement case on the property to get permits for that. And also, part of the expansion is to expand the dining room and the bar, and also create new accessible restrooms as well. There's only one currently, and it's pretty tight. So this gives us opportunity to really improve the interior dining room of the project. The parking is really just getting restriped to meet current ADA, the stalls of different size under current regulations, as well as the working with transportation to make sure we have correct maneuvering clearances. Other new site elements is a new trash enclosure. The previous one was too small. So we've got a city-approved size there with trash recycle and food scraps. The tire storage, we're just going to attach to that and put it on the back side. And then you can see the accessible path of travel, both for the auto shop office and to and from the trash enclosure and to the back of house area. For the kitchen, let's see, other notable things on the site plan. Well, we'll do that in our presentation of the site. I'm going to skip quickly to floor plan, so A102. A couple of highlights here, and then take you through the rest. So the project is really a result of the new zoning ordinance. So in the zoning ordinance discussions, if you recall, there was a lot of discussion about how do we park restaurants. So as it stands, the seating conversation went out of the window. So it's really about 1 per 250 of commercial square footage, and you can go up to half of that outside. So as the restaurants operated for a long time, there was no way to get that outdoor seating because it was such a small dining room to work. Now with this new zoning ordinance, it actually incentivizes the operators to expand the dining room. So we're doing that with a new bar area, the two ADA restrooms there, and really improve the indoor dining, and that allows for the outdoor dining we have. So it's about 1,700 square feet interior, and the exterior is just under 800, so we're under the 50% under the new rules, which really allows for us to permit, and not just that, but really improve the outdoor dining. A couple other things to note: there's not a lot of equipment on the roof. The main exhaust from the hood is here. It has an existing screening wall. The makeup air unit is here to remain. There's a condenser for the walk-in cooler below in the new back-of-house area as well. And as you saw in the photos, you can't see any of the new equipment. And the existing screening wall does a good job of screening these other two pieces here. So with that, let me pass it along. Well, I spent a little time inside to show you why this project even came to be, because primarily it is an exterior renovation of the site. So we'll turn back to landscape, and I'll pass it to Robert.
All right, so in regards to the landscape here, I guess we're trying to create an outdoor dining area, and there's a few elements going on here. There's new fencing that's going to be along the street frontage here. There's going to be horizontal wood fencing with a planter in front of it. There's an area with new signage on the corner for the restaurant. Integrated into the fencing is going to be like a pergola structure that provides shading over the seats that are on the inside of the fencing. This whole patio is going to be permeable pavers. Currently, it's an impermeable surface, so we're improving it in that sense. There's another area for dining over here that has a bar on the back of it. There's like views of the mountain sitting here, so that's kind of like raised bar seating, and then these are posts with a beam to allow for market lighting. As he was describing, there's a new trash enclosure over here, which is going to match the styling of the fencing with the horizontal wood. We've got two new bike parking racks proposed there, as well as a bike locker. All the planting that is proposed is drought tolerant and succulents and stuff you see around Santa Barbara. So we're trying to get maybe like a vine growing on the outside of this fence here to soften it a little bit. But mostly it's just creating kind of a nice outdoor experience for people who want to dine in the restaurant. So that's the gist of it.
Great. Thank you, Robert. One other site element to note, along the existing wall along De La Guerra, we're providing a 3-foot minimum landscape strip. To increase this to the required 5 feet, we have such a limitation in our accessible path of travel in the existing parking area. We're actually nosing over even to meet the minimum transportation standards. So the request for waiver is part of our application today. Just want to make a note of that. And we didn't take it all the way because this is it's the part of the space for the service bays, the 3 service bays, as you saw, for them to maneuver in and out. So we just kept it in front of the parking area. There is a tall block wall along this property line existing. I think it's about 6 feet tall. And the back of the building itself is block just about to the corner along Milpas. And it stops there. Actually, yeah, it does. It lowers down a little bit. And stucco all the remainder of the building. Other than that, there's an elevation sheet, mostly to show there's really little to no scope on the building itself. So starting at the bottom, this is the elevation that faces Milpas. You can see the existing stucco wall. That's to remain. The openings to remain to the dining room. The existing stucco roof is to remain as well. We've got our planter boxes there separating the sidewalk from the service window area. The new proposed trellis and fencing on the auto bay side and the northern elevation. No change to the openings here either, or the existing awning that's there. So really the majority is either interiors. You can kind of sense of it from the section between kitchen and the new bar and dining area. And it really is mostly exterior site improvements for the outdoor patio.
Just to clarify, the alternative parking landscape design, it's basically, this is going, instead of being 5 feet, it's 3 feet. Is that what you just said?
That's
Is
correct. That's my understanding. I'll have staff for
Is that what they're asking
properly.
for?
Yes. So under ENZO, one of the requirements is if you are adjacent to a residentially zoned property, you are required to have a 5-foot planter. That can be reduced down to 3 feet. Actually, let me rephrase that.
Yeah.
Every parking area needs to have a perimeter planter, regardless of what you're
Sure.
against. But this board can reduce it down to 3 feet if it's adjacent to residential, and down to as little as they want if it's adjacent to commercially zoned properties.
Okay, but this is the, what's it, part of that, right?
Correct.
That's it.
But there's a block wall along this.
And
I
it's-
just need
the
to know,
reason-
what
and
we're.
it's just for parking
what we're
areas,
looking
so
at.
that's why they are not required to carry it all the way across. It's just for where
Got
the
it.
parking
So
is happening.
We're not talking about this. We're
No,
just
that's
talking about
that.
this.
It's just that area where it's for parking.
Yeah, great. So does that conclude your
It
presentation?
does. Thank you. Thank you,
So
staff, for the clarification.
We'll open up for public comment. Would anyone in the public like to comment on this project? Seeing no one, we'll close public comment, go to questions from the board. David, you want to start?
Just so I'm clear too, so is there a residentially zoned property across Milpas Street right there?
This is,
So-
it's on this side, the
So
mountain side.
Milpas Street,
Milpas
you're
is
seeing
the-
Oh, I'm sorry,
labeled
reading
as
the
This is
yeah,
Milpas,
yeah.
this is on De La Guerra.
Okay.
Is there a larger site plan?
The property is adjacent to a residentially zoned.
Hence,
So it's just not shown.
yeah, I guess, can you maybe describe then, like, what's the adjacent lot situated like? What's the footprint? Is the house pushed back up the street? Is it,
Yeah, we don't
I guess,
have
what's
any-
directly off
there's no
that
photos
little zone
of
that we're
it.
looking at?
If I recall, I believe that's where their driveway is alongside the wall, and then the residence is on the more eastern side, and it's pushed back a little bit.
It'd be helpful if we could like see that.
I could answer some of these too.
Yeah, our operator's here. He could be of helpful for
Is
the
it,
question.
can you clarify? Is that okay? Or?
Well, we can, but yeah, we kind of need to see
you know
it.
the answer to that question?
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
So you have to actually sit up here. You have to sit up here and state your name for
Come
the
sit.
record.
Dudley Michael,
Have a chat.
operator of the business.
So there's just questions of what is next to the driveway to the east.
Off of De La Guerra. So across the street from De La Guerra is an existing commercial property, which is the old bank. I think it was a Bank of Santa Barbara before, and it is now vacant. And then,
But then, so
yeah, if you can give me
it's
the
what
other
we can't.
plans.
It's what we can't see on the. So
On the other side of that block wall.
On the
It's
other
over
side of that
here.
block, I got you. So behind that is about it's a road, I guess. I guess it's a driveway. It's dirt. It's about 12 feet wide. So there's a home on this corner, and then there's a home next to it running down what I can't remember what the street's called. And then behind this rock wall is about a 12-foot dirt road that goes all the way back, which I think is garage access for the second home.
Okay.
I don't think it has any access for this first home on the corner, but this second home, I think it gets them back behind there and lets them pull into something.
Okay.
But yeah, it's a road.
Okay, thanks. And then as you guys pointed
dirt
out,
path.
there's that CMU wall that's on your property actually is about 5 or 6 feet high that runs
It's 6
continuously.
feet, yeah. So it's house, the back of the house fence, and then there's a 10 or 12-foot dirt path, then a 6-foot block wall to that property, and then it would be the planter that we're putting in, the 3-foot planter.
Okay, thanks. And then with the configuration you guys have shown right now, your backup clearances and everything on the site, right? You're not having to go with transportation and ask for any reductions in the driveway aisle or anything like that because of this, or you comply?
Sure. We've had transportation look at the plan a couple times already and confirm that things look good. They gave us a couple comments. Mostly, it was just widening the end stalls to 10 feet, and we've incorporated that.
Okay. No further questions. Thank you.
Okay. Kevin.
The flip to the landscape. So, how tall is this arbor piece? And then how tall is this one? Are these posts?
Thinking about 8.5 to 9 feet tall.
To
kind of how they're.
Or in the elevation. The dimensions.
No.
If you've got a scale, you can probably.
Yep.
Yes. I put 8.5 feet, and I think that's to the bottom of the.
Yeah,
the horizontal
it's
arm.
here, Chair, it's here, number 5. They're 8.5 foot tall, and the
That's-
fence is 42 inches.
And that's to the underside of these.
Yeah.
These guys. Okay.
It's like it's 8. It's 8 feet to the underside, 9 feet to the top.
And then the same, I guess, at the trash enclosure, is that a 6-foot fence?
Yeah, it's 6 foot.
Correction, the trash enclosure we changed just most recently per environmental's comments. It was 6 feet, it went to 7 feet. And that's noted here. Which item is it? 17, 18,
11. 7-foot height, okay.
So 7 feet, there it is.
Okay. And then you have, is this the intended paving pattern, or is this just a placeholder for now?
We haven't chose a paver yet, so probably gonna have to discuss with the operator what he wants to use. But
Okay.
Whatever you guys want.
it's gonna be some type of permeable paver product.
Right. And probably with some sort of a
Throughout.
It'll have like a
the-
concrete band around it to lock
band
it in.
to get it all in there. So there'll be a,
Yeah.
well, who knows about the transition there, but. Okay. And then the awning is existing.
Correct.
It's not a part of this, not a part of the enforcement.
No, it hasn't been identified as that. It's a simple gray awning, as you saw in the photos.
And then you are proposing just bare bulb market lights or cafe lights?
That's the idea, yeah. There's discussion about possibly putting in some shade cloth in here as well, so there's going to be a wire with lighting hung from underneath it. I don't know if it shows a specific market light, but that's kind of the idea behind it.
Okay. That's it. Thanks.
Howard?
So what's the floor material in the existing restaurant that's going to be, expanded? Is that tile on the floor?
Interior?
Are you looking
Yeah,
at the
this, for
inside?
the example, the floor material in this
On the
area.
outside slab is just a slab concrete.
It's
Slab
painted
like a
concrete.
pebbled slab
So
concrete.
when the experience walking in, what's inside the restaurant?
Are you talking about this?
No,
Where you're
no, I'm
you're
talking about
inside,
this here,
underneath here?
walking in, yeah.
So
and-
so you go from a pebbled concrete slab to a smooth concrete slab under this awning, and then that continues into a polished concrete floor into the dining room, which will be continued throughout the rest of the new dining room will be continue to be polished concrete.
Okay, okay. Those are my only questions.
Are you going to, is there any planting, like vines or anything for the trellis?
We're proposing vines for the fencing here, and we were actually just discussing, the operator says he'd be interested in possibly having some vines coming up into that, so I think that's, might be nice to kind of soften the structure.
The more shade and the more green, the better, in my opinion.
And then this tire storage, is it essentially like trash that's going to get picked up, so it's not just always?
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, that was a requirement, right?
It's a place, correct, Chair. It's a place for the used tires. When they change them out, they put them in there for the pickups and drop-offs.
Part of the enclosure.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Yeah, I saw it's all the same height, right?
Mhm. Correct.
And then the only thing about the landscaping that I was going to ask was, did you guys look at putting in like something more vertical here at the corner, like inside?
I was showing like some flax in there, which is kind of vertical. I mean, there might be an
But
opportunity to bring, you thinking like a tree or something into that space?
Yeah. I don't know, just like, not in front of the sign, I get that,
Yeah.
but just inside, I didn't know, just to anchor the corner.
That's something that could be looked at. I didn't want to have anything that would be competing with the shade structure.
Mhm.
That would get up into it, but
Yeah.
there's something could come up over the back of that fence. It would look nice. So
Yeah, just exactly, kind of like in that area. Okay. Let's go into comments. David? So this is,
Comments? Yeah.
yeah.
Okay.
No, it's not comments only, but
Oh,
we would,
sorry.
yeah,
Yeah.
action can be taken. But there's the,
I like the project. I think it's nicely done. I think it's a great addition to that corner. That area definitely needs improvements where possible. So I think the materials, the landscaping, I think all of it just kind of works really well for that area. And I think it's a big improvement to what's already there on site, like just kind of cleaning up, getting trash, congregated and whatnot. I support the landscape modification you guys are looking for. I think that's fine. I would even be fine if, I don't know how other board members feel if it needs to be reduced even less than that, just because given the fact that it seems like there's a driveway that's next to it, it's not going to be visible. There's a CMU wall that's going to hide whether it's 3 feet, 5 feet, or 1 foot. So.
staff want to comment? Were you going to say something?
3 feet would be the minimum that it could be reduced to.
So
by
take
this.
that back to 3 feet.
yeah.
3 feet it
I
is.
think more would require modification at this
Then don't want to do that. 3 feet. So yeah, I think the materials, so far that's been proposed is nice. I think it works for me. The only thing is just a small thing I look at sometimes just from being in my own projects is the trash enclosure. It just looks like there's a little pinch point between the dumpsters. So just, it's kind of nicer sometimes to get that straightened out earlier on with environmental services, make sure it all looks fine so you're not having to worry about it later. Because given how tight the site is, you might be forced into a hole later on that you don't want to get out of. But otherwise, it's fine.
Mm-hmm.
It's a nice project.
Kevin?
Yeah, I agree. I think it's a nice project, a nice improvement of the site. I think the landscape will be critical, and I like the idea of getting something growing up on those fences and on those posts. I think that would be really nice. I think it might even be interesting to get this middle portion a little bit taller than the perimeter, just so you get a little bit more volume in there and might be a little bit more dynamic and interesting, give you some more opportunity to get some shade. If that you do put shade cloth, it'd be nice to get it up higher even, so you get more expanse. And I would encourage you to look at additional locations for vine pockets potentially. If that's possible, you could carve out a little area here or there so you get something growing up along the back there. And I mean, the cafe lights, I would encourage you to find some other more permanent lights that are either post mounted or down lights, that so that the cafe lights are more of a mood light and not the main source of light for that area.
Howard?
I agree pretty much with other comments. I do have a couple of suggestions. One is that the old tire shop is an old-time Milpas building, but it also is not a great example of the direction that Milpas needs to go in. So the more you can distance yourself from tying in with that, the better. In fact, adding these little wood things, wood partitions, wood walls, which really is a part of this architecture, probably doesn't serve the purpose of making this building like that. I would make this building a standalone, your patio a standalone. And if you're going to use wood walls and trellises and so forth, don't have those elements in this old building. In a way, it has its own integrity, as sad as it is. But you have concrete surfaces in there, and you could, I see different textures. I see wood in this floor here, but you tell me that it is actually, in fact, permeable paving. Sorry. There's something not quite right with the bracketing of your trellis member. And the way you put the trellis together, you really have a series of frames, each of which carries 2 beams. And on top of those 2 beams, you would have these pieces, and then if you had other horizontal pieces. The layering of your trellises, it needs a little study, and also this little hook where you chop off the base of your bracket exactly where you need the meat to support it. Seems a little, this thing here isn't quite, yeah. I would study that to make it more like a real trellis, a real bracket. But the landscaping, drought tolerant and native is very nice, very good. And I think the natural wood will be nice. Those are my comments.
Thanks. Yeah, I think this is a good project. I think it's an improvement to what is already there, and I agree. I think the landscaping is really going to kind of tie everything together, and I think actually bringing up the vines and having it grow on the trellis is gonna help, and it's gonna add more shade. Which is something that could happen in here too. And then possibly getting, if it's not a tree, something just with some more vertical height to kind of anchor this corner behind the fence, just to add more layering design. And I liked Kevin's comment about, doing some vine pockets to start introducing some planting in here, since there is a lot of paving. And I think it would be a benefit to the project. But yeah, overall I agree with the other comments that were said, and I could support this just being 3 feet rather than 5, because you're still providing a good amount of planting. You want to make a motion?
Okay. Put me on the spot. Well, I guess.
Someone else wants to make a motion.
Why don't we? I mean, should we take a straw vote? How many board members feel this is ready for PDA at this point?
I think it's ready.
So I would say my motion would be indefinite continuance.
Yes.
To the full board with project design approval. Board compliments the designers on their choices and the layout, and would like to see additional landscaping at the exterior fence in the form of vines or other more climbing elements. Study the addition of a more vertical planting at the street corner on the interior side of the fence. The board is supportive of the reduction of parking landscape buffer. The landscape
parking
waiver. Study alternative lighting in the exterior. Study possibly breaking up the pattern of the paver to reduce the apparent monolithic appearance.
Do you mean stepping, maybe? Raising levels?
Nope.
Like just breaking it up.
Definitely not stepping.
Doing like bands. or
Just,
something.
yeah, they know whatever. Study varying the height of the interior trellis. And anything else?
Bracket study here?
Yes. Study the
Structural design.
structural makeup and layering of the trellis members.
Thank you.
Any other additions?
No.
That's it.
I guess provide materials board,
Yeah.
all the typical
Details.
details needed for final approval.
May I ask for clarification? Sure.
Are you seconding?
Sure. Yep. Do you mean alternative, like for the exterior lighting, alternative in lieu of the market lighting, or to complement?
In addition to.
This is market lighting?
Yeah. He's just asking for additional like lighting, but to keep that as a ambiance. Okay, so we have a first.
and I'll
David
second that.
seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you.
I meant to say aye when you.
Oh, well.
First did.
Okay.
Thank you, Chair and board members. We look forward
you,
to bringing the
guys.
project back.
Thanks,
All right,
Yeah.
thanks.
Thank you.
Yes.
This project.
And that will conclude our meeting for Monday, June 18th.
Oh.
So-